The company was worth $1 billion. The man asleep at the terminal had just saved it from total destruction, and the new CEO was about to fire him in front of everyone. What happened next would nearly bankrupt them all. This is a story about power, mistakes, and the quiet people who hold the world together while nobody's watching. Stay until the end to see how a single father who lost everything fought his way back to dignity, and how the woman who destroyed his life learned what true leadership really means. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city name so I can see how far this story travels. Let's begin. The elevator doors opened on the 42nd floor at exactly 6:47 a.m., and Evelyn Carter stepped into her future. She was 30 years old. She was the youngest CEO in the company's history. She had fought, sacrificed, and clawed her way through 12 years of corporate warfare to reach this moment. Her heels clicked against the marble floor with the sharp precision of a declaration. I have arrived. The operations center sprawled before her like the bridge of a spaceship. 300 workstations arranged in concentric circles beneath a wall of monitors displaying real-time financial data from 17 countries. Transaction volumes, market indices, security alerts. The heartbeat of a billion-dollar empire, rendered in numbers that shifted and pulsed like living organisms. Evelyn had prepared for this morning the way generals prepare for battle. She had rehearsed her entrance speech. She had selected her outfit with surgical care. Charcoal suit, minimal jewelry, nothing that could be dismissed as trying too hard. She had even practiced her handshake, firm but not aggressive, confident but not arrogant. What she had not prepared for was the man asleep at workstation 14C. She spotted him immediately. Head down on the desk, arms folded beneath his face, completely motionless except for the slow rise and fall of his shoulders. The monitors in front of him displayed cascading lines of code, error logs, system diagnostics, critical infrastructure laid bare and apparently abandoned. Evelyn stopped walking. Around her, employees were beginning to notice her presence. Heads turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. The operations floor fell into the kind of silence that precedes either celebration or catastrophe. She could feel their eyes on her, waiting, measuring, wondering what kind of leader she would be. The man at 14C didn't move. Evelyn's jaw tightened. In all her years climbing the corporate ladder, she had learned one fundamental truth. Weakness spreads faster than excellence. Culture is defined in the first 5 minutes. Let one person sleep on the job during your first day as CEO, and by lunch, everyone would know you were soft. She walked toward the workstation. The man wore a faded button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms marked by exhaustion, muscle, and tendons standing out too sharply beneath skin that hadn't seen enough sleep or sunlight. His face was turned away from her, buried in his arms, dark hair falling across his knuckles. Evelyn stopped directly beside him. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. In the cavernous silence of the operations center, her words carried like a gunshot. Wake up! The man didn't stir. Someone coughed nervously 3 rows back. A keyboard stopped clicking. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Evelyn reached down and rapped her knuckles sharply against the desk. I said wake up. The man jolted upright so suddenly his chair rolled backward and crashed into the partition behind him. He blinked hard, disoriented, eyes struggling to focus. For a moment he just stared at her, uncomprehending, like someone dragged out of deep water into blinding light. Then recognition hit. His face drained of color. His voice was rough, scraped raw. I'm sorry, Stand up, Evelyn said. He stood. He was taller than she expected, but the height was undercut by the way he swayed slightly, catching himself on the edge of the desk. Exhaustion had carved shadows beneath his eyes so deep they looked like bruises. What's your name? Evelyn asked. Noah Hayes. How long have you worked here, Noah? 6 years? 6 years. Evelyn let the words hang in the air. And in those 6 years, did anyone ever explain to you that sleeping at your desk is unacceptable? Noah opened his mouth, then closed it. His eyes darted toward the monitors behind him, just for a second, but Evelyn caught it. She glanced at the screens. Code. Data. Nothing that meant anything to her. I asked you a question, she said. Yes, Noah said quietly. They explained. Then help me understand what I'm looking at. Noah swallowed hard. I can explain. You can explain why you thought the rules didn't apply to you. No, I... He stopped. His hands were shaking. Evelyn could see him fighting to organize his thoughts, to find words that would make sense, but exhaustion had clearly stripped away his ability to think clearly. There's something happening with the system. I don't want excuses, Evelyn cut him off. I want accountability. Behind her, she could feel the weight of 300 people watching. This wasn't about Noah Hayes anymore. This was about setting the tone for her entire leadership. Show mercy now, and every employee in the building would learn that effort didn't matter, that results didn't matter, that you could coast on excuses and sympathy. She had not fought this hard to lead a company that tolerated mediocrity. You're fired, Evelyn said, effective immediately. The words landed like a physical blow. Noah's face went completely blank. Not with anger, not with shock, but with something worse. Resignation. Like he'd known this was coming and had simply been too tired to prevent it. Security will escort you out, Evelyn continued. You have 10 minutes to collect your personal belongings. HR will contact you regarding final pay and benefits. Noah didn't argue, didn't protest. He just stood there, swaying slightly, staring at nothing. Ms. Carter, Evelyn turned. A woman in her mid-40s was approaching rapidly, her face tight with alarm. She wore a senior engineer's badge. Ms. Carter, I need to speak with you, the woman said urgently. Privately. Not now, Evelyn said. It's about Noah. The decision is final. You don't understand? I understand perfectly. Evelyn's voice was ice. This company has standards. Anyone who can't meet them doesn't belong here. The woman fell silent. She looked at Noah, who still hadn't moved, then back at Evelyn. Something passed across her face. Disappointment, maybe? Or pity? It set Evelyn's teeth on edge. 10 minutes, Evelyn repeated. She turned and walked away, heels clicking against the floor in sharp, definitive rhythm. Behind her, she heard the shuffle of movement, the low murmur of conversation resuming. She didn't look back. As she crossed the operations floor toward her new office, she caught fragments of whispered exchanges. Can't believe she... First day and she... Doesn't even know what he... Evelyn kept walking. Let them whisper. Let them judge. They would learn soon enough that she wasn't here to make friends. She was here to lead. Her office occupied the northeast corner of the 42nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a desk made of reclaimed wood and steel, leather chairs that probably cost more than most employees made in a month. The previous CEO had decorated the space like a museum, all abstract art and carefully curated minimalism. Evelyn hated it, but she didn't have time to redecorate. She sat down behind the desk, pulled out her tablet, and began reviewing the morning briefing. Revenue projections. Market analysis. Competitor movements. The ordinary machinery of corporate leadership. She worked for exactly 43 minutes before the first system alert appeared. It was small, barely noticeable. Just a yellow notification in the bottom corner of her screen. Transaction processing, minor delay. Evelyn frowned. She tapped the notification. A secondary window opened, displaying technical details she didn't fully understand. Error codes. Server timestamps. Processing queues running slightly behind schedule. Nothing critical, probably just routine maintenance creating a temporary bottleneck. She dismissed the alert and returned to her briefing. 7 minutes later, another notification appeared. Payment network, elevated latency. Then another, security protocol, authentication delay. And another, transaction verification, queue overflow. Evelyn set down her tablet. The alerts were multiplying faster than she could dismiss them. She stood up and walked to her office door, looking out across the operations floor. Something had changed. The casual morning atmosphere had evaporated. Engineers were standing now, clustered around workstations, their voices rising in urgency. Monitors that had displayed smooth data flows were now flashing red. Someone was shouting into a phone. Someone else was actually running, toward the server room. Evelyn stepped out of her office. What's happening? She called out. Nobody answered. They were too focused on their screens, their phones, their frantic attempts to diagnose whatever was going wrong. The senior engineer from earlier, the one who had tried to warn her about Noah, came striding across the floor. Her face was pale. We have a problem, she said. I can see that. What kind of problem? System failures. Multiple cascading errors across the entire infrastructure. How bad? The woman hesitated. Bad enough that I need you to authorize an emergency system restart. A restart? Won't that disrupt service? We're already disrupted. Transactions are freezing. Payment networks are failing. If we don't restart now, we're going to have a complete meltdown. Evelyn felt a cold knot forming in her stomach. What caused this? We don't know yet, but we need to act fast. Do it, Evelyn said. Restart the system. The woman nodded and turned to go. Wait, Evelyn said. Where's the specialist who usually handles this kind of thing? The woman stopped, turned back, looked at Evelyn with an expression that made her insides twist. You fired him an hour ago, she said quietly. The world seemed to tilt. Noah Hayes was your lead infrastructure specialist? Noah Hayes was the only person in this building who fully understood our security architecture, the woman said. He designed half of it himself. Evelyn felt the blood drain from her face. Why didn't anyone tell me? I tried to. The words hit like a fist. Evelyn opened her mouth, closed it, tried to think. Can we call him back? Security already escorted him off the property. His access badges are deactivated. He's gone. Then get someone else. You have 300 engineers here. Noah spent the last 6 years building a system so complex that nobody else can navigate it without his documentation. And his documentation is encrypted on his workstation. The woman's voice was steady, professional, but there was an edge to it now. You want my advice? Restart the system and pray we can contain the damage. She walked away before Evelyn could respond. Evelyn stood frozen in the middle of the operations floor, surrounded by chaos she had created, watching her first day as CEO dissolve into catastrophe. And somewhere in the back of her mind, she kept hearing Noah Hayes' voice, rough and exhausted, trying to tell her something important before she cut him off. There's something happening with the system. The restart happened at 9:23 a.m. Evelyn watched from her office as engineers initiated the emergency protocol. One by one, the massive server arrays that powered the company's global operations began shutting down. Transaction processing halted. Payment networks went dark. Security systems went offline. For exactly 90 seconds, the company ceased to exist. Then the systems began coming back online. Except they didn't come back the way they were supposed to. The first sign of trouble appeared on the main display wall, a massive screen that dominated the north side of the operations center. Revenue flows, usually depicted as smooth green lines tracking money moving through the company's networks, began fragmenting. The lines fractured into jagged segments, branching off in directions that made no sense. What is that? Evelyn asked, stepping out of her office. Nobody answered. The operations floor had gone completely silent. 300 people staring at the screens in collective horror. Then the alarms started. Not the polite yellow notifications Evelyn had seen earlier. These were red, urgent, multiplying across every screen in the building. Unauthorized transaction detected, security breach. Protocol override funds. Transfer. Destination unknown. Critical alert. System compromise. The senior engineer, Evelyn had learned her name was Rachel Voss, came running across the floor, her face ashen. We have a massive problem, Rachel said. Tell me. Someone's inside our system. They're rerouting corporate accounts. Millions of dollars are being transferred to external destinations we can't identify. Evelyn's vision narrowed. How is that possible? We just restarted. The restart triggered it, Rachel said. There was something already inside the system, dormant, waiting. The moment we powered down and came back online, it activated. Can you stop it? We're trying, but every security protocol we activate gets bypassed. It's like the attacker knows exactly how our defenses work. Because someone spent 48 hours fighting to contain it, Evelyn thought. Someone who was too exhausted to stay awake. Someone I fired. Where's Noah Hayes right now? Evelyn asked. I don't know. Home, probably. Get me his address, his phone number, everything. Rachel hesitated. You want to bring him back? I want to do whatever it takes to save this company. Move. Rachel ran. Evelyn turned back to the display wall. The financial hemorrhaging was accelerating, account after account draining, money vanishing into the digital void. At this rate, the company would be bankrupt by sunset. She pulled out her phone and dialed the CFO. Evelyn? The CFO's voice was tight with stress. Please tell me you're seeing what I'm seeing. I'm seeing it. We're losing everything. The board is already calling. They want answers. They'll have them. When? Evelyn looked at the chaos erupting across the operations floor. Soon. She hung up before he could ask more questions. Rachel appeared at her elbow, slightly out of breath. I have Noah's information. Give it to me. Rachel held out a printed sheet. Evelyn scanned it quickly. Address in a modest neighborhood 20 minutes away. Cell phone number. Emergency contact. A daughter, age 7. A daughter. Evelyn felt something twist in her chest. She pushed it down. I'm going to his apartment, she said. You want me to send security? No, I'm going alone. Ms. Carter, keep working on containment. Do whatever you can. I'll be back in an hour. Evelyn didn't wait for a response. She grabbed her coat and headed for the elevator, leaving behind the wreckage of her first day as CEO. Noah Hayes lived in a converted industrial building on the east side of the city, the kind of neighborhood where artists and grad students clustered because the rent was almost affordable. Evelyn found the address easily, a brick structure that had probably been a factory once, now carved into loft apartments with mismatched windows and fire escapes that looked older than she was. She parked on the street and stared up at the building. This was insane. She was the CEO of a billion-dollar company, and she was about to beg for help from a man she'd humiliated and fired. The board would be furious. Her executive team would question her judgment. The optics alone were disastrous, but the company was bleeding out in real time. Evelyn got out of the car. The building's entrance wasn't locked, just a heavy door that opened into a dim hallway smelling of old paint and someone's cooking. She climbed 3 flights of stairs and found apartment 3F. She knocked. Nothing. She knocked again, harder. The door opened. But it wasn't Noah Hayes standing there. It was a little girl. She was small, maybe 7 years old, wearing an oversized sweater and striped leggings. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, and she held a worn, stuffed rabbit against her chest. She looked up at Evelyn with serious brown eyes. Hi, the girl said. Evelyn's prepared speech evaporated. Is your father home? He's sleeping. It's important that I speak with him. The girl studied her. Are you from the company? Yes. Are you the one who fired him? The question was delivered without malice, just simple curiosity, but it landed like a knife between Evelyn's ribs. Yes, Evelyn said quietly. I am. The girl nodded slowly. He said you didn't know. Didn't know what? That he was trying to save the company. He said something bad was going to happen, and he had to stop it before people got hurt. Evelyn knelt down, bringing herself to eye level with the child. What's your name? Lily. Lily, I need to talk to your father. It's an emergency. Lily looked back over her shoulder, then returned her gaze to Evelyn. He hasn't slept in 3 days. Not really, just little pieces. He keeps waking up and checking his computer. I understand, but he cried this morning, Lily said. The words were matter of fact, but they hit Evelyn like a physical blow. After the security people made him leave, he came home and sat on the couch and cried. I've never seen him cry before. Evelyn felt something crack inside her chest. I'm sorry, she said. The words felt impossibly small. I'm so sorry. Why did you fire him if he was trying to help? Because I didn't listen. I made a mistake. Lily considered this. People make mistakes sometimes. They do. My dad says the important thing is what you do after. Evelyn swallowed hard. Your dad is a smart man. Lily nodded. Then she turned and called back into the apartment. Daddy, there's a lady here from the company. There was a long silence. Then Evelyn heard movement, slow, heavy footsteps. A door opening somewhere inside the apartment. Noah Hayes appeared in the hallway behind his daughter. He looked worse than he had at the office. The shadows under his eyes had deepened to the color of bruises. His hair stuck up at odd angles. He wore sweatpants and an old t-shirt with a faded logo she didn't recognize. He moved like someone carrying an enormous weight. When he saw Evelyn, he stopped. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. "Hi," Noah said finally. His voice was flat, emptied of emotion. "Hi," Evelyn said. "You came to apologize?" "I came to ask for help." Something flickered across Noah's face. Surprise, maybe, or bitter amusement. "Help! The system is failing, exactly the way you tried to warn me about." "I know." "You know?" Noah gestured vaguely toward the interior of the apartment. "I've been monitoring the network remotely, watching it fall apart." "And you didn't call? Didn't try to Try to what?" Noah's voice went sharp. "You fired me. You had security escort me out like a criminal. You made it very clear you didn't want my help." "I was wrong." "Yes, you were." The words hung in the air between them. Lily tugged on Noah's sleeve. "Daddy, she says she's sorry." Noah looked down at his daughter, and some of the hardness left his face. He touched the top of her head gently. "I know, sweetheart." He looked back at Evelyn. "What exactly do you want from me?" "I need you to come back, fix the system, stop whatever's happening. And if I say no," Evelyn took a breath, "then the company fails. Thousands of people lose their jobs. Millions of customers lose access to their accounts. The damage spreads across the entire financial sector." Sounds like a problem for the CEO to solve. The bitterness in his voice was acid. Evelyn deserved every drop of it. "You're right," she said. "It is my problem. I created it, but I can't fix it alone." She paused. "I'm asking you to help me anyway." Noah stared at her. "Why would I?" "Boss." "Because the people who get hurt aren't the ones who made the mistake. It's everyone else. The employees who depend on their paychecks, the customers who trust us with their money, the families whose lives will be destroyed if this company collapses. That's not my responsibility anymore." "I know. You took that away from me." "I know. So why should I care?" Evelyn looked at Lily, still holding her stuffed rabbit, watching this conversation with serious eyes, then back at Noah. "Because you've already spent 3 days trying to prevent this exact disaster," Evelyn said quietly. "Because you're someone who lies awake at night worrying about people getting hurt. Because even though I humiliated you and threw you away like you were nothing, you still haven't stopped caring." Noah's jaw tightened. "Don't pretend you know me." "I don't, but your daughter told me something." Evelyn glanced at Lily. "She said you believe the important thing is what we do after we make mistakes." For the first time, something shifted in Noah's expression. The anger didn't disappear, but it was joined by something else. Exhaustion, resignation, and underneath it all, the same quality Evelyn had seen in his daughter's eyes. Decency. "If I do this," Noah said slowly, "I'm not doing it for you. I understand. I'm doing it because innocent people will suffer if I don't. I understand. And when it's over, I'm gone. Permanently." "Okay." Noah looked at his daughter. "Lily, I need to go to work for a while." "I know," Lily said. "Can you stay with Mrs. Chen downstairs?" "Okay." Noah knelt down and pulled her into a tight hug. Evelyn watched the way he held her, careful, protective, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. When he pulled back, he touched her cheek gently. "I'll be back as soon as I can," he said. "Be careful, Daddy." "Always." Lily disappeared into the apartment. Noah stood up, looking at Evelyn with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Let's go," he said. They didn't speak during the drive back to headquarters. Noah sat in the passenger seat staring out the window, his body language radiating exhaustion and something darker, betrayal maybe, or grief. Evelyn wanted to say something, apologize again, explain. But every word that came to mind felt inadequate. When they pulled into the underground parking garage, Noah finally spoke. "The attack started 48 hours ago," he said quietly. "I caught it early. Isolated the infected systems. Spent 2 days building firewalls to contain it." "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "I tried. I sent alerts to the security team, filed emergency reports. Nobody paid attention. They assumed I was being paranoid." He turned to look at her. "I fell asleep at my desk because I'd been awake for 46 straight hours trying to save the company you just started running." Evelyn felt like she'd been punched. "Noah." "I left one instruction before security dragged me out," Noah continued. Don't restart the system, because I knew the attack was dormant, contained. The moment you powered down and came back online, it would activate. Nobody told me, because nobody listened. They sat in silence. I should have heard you out, Evelyn said finally. Before making a decision, I should have asked questions. Yes, Noah said. You should have. I can't undo it. No, you can't. Evelyn took a breath. But I can try to do better going forward. Noah looked at her for a long moment. Then he opened the car door. Let's save your company, he said. When Noah Hayes walked back into the operations center, the entire floor fell silent. Engineers stopped mid-sentence. Conversations died. People turned to stare. At Noah. At Evelyn. At the impossible sight of the man who'd been publicly fired returning with the CEO who'd destroyed him. Noah ignored them all. He walked straight to workstation 14C, his workstation, and sat down. The monitors in front of him displayed catastrophe. Transaction networks collapsing, security protocols failing, money hemorrhaging into unknown destinations at a rate that would bankrupt the company within hours. Noah stared at the screens for exactly 5 seconds. Then his fingers hit the keyboard, and everything changed. Evelyn watched from behind him, mesmerized. Noah worked with the kind of focus she'd seen in surgeons during critical operations. Absolute concentration, no wasted movement, every action deliberate and precise. His hands moved across the keyboard almost faster than she could track. Lines of code appeared and disappeared on the monitors. System logs scrolled past at blinding speed. Diagnostic tools activated, ran their analyses, and shut down again. Rachel Voss approached quietly. What's he doing? I have no idea, Evelyn said. They watched Noah work. Around them, other engineers were gravitating toward his workstation, forming a loose circle. Nobody spoke. They just watched, recognizing something happening that was beyond their ability to replicate. He's mapping the attack, someone murmured. How is he doing that so fast? Because he built the system. He knows every line of code. Noah's voice cut through the whispers. Rachel, I need you to isolate servers 14 through 28. Complete network quarantine. Rachel jumped. That's our entire customer transaction backend. I know what it is. Do it now. Rachel ran to her workstation. 30 seconds later. Servers isolated. Good. Now I need someone to manually verify the authentication protocols on the backup payment systems. Physical verification, not digital. A junior engineer raised his hand tentatively. I can do that. 3rd floor, server room C. You're looking for hardware authentications that don't match the digital logs. Go. The engineer ran. Noah kept typing. Evelyn couldn't follow what he was doing anymore. The technical details were far beyond her understanding, but she could see the results on the main display wall. The financial hemorrhaging was slowing. Not stopped, not fixed, but slowing. The jagged red lines tracking stolen funds were beginning to stabilize. He's fighting them in real time, Rachel whispered. He's manually blocking the attack vectors faster than they can adapt. Evelyn stared at the screens. Is that even possible? For anyone else? No. 2 hours passed like minutes. Noah worked without stopping, calling out instructions to engineers who scrambled to execute them. He isolated corrupted systems, rebuilt damaged security protocols, hunted down hidden pathways the attackers had embedded in the infrastructure, and slowly, impossibly, he began winning. The red alerts turned yellow, then green. Transaction networks came back online one by one. Security protocols stabilized. The stolen funds stopped flowing. At 3:47 p.m., exactly 4 hours after Noah had returned to the building, he hit a final sequence of keys and leaned back in his chair. The operations floor held its breath. Then the main display wall flashed green across every metric. System secure threat. Neutralized all networks operational. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then someone started clapping. Then someone else. Within seconds, the entire operations floor erupted in applause. 300 people standing, cheering, celebrating the man who had just saved them all. Noah didn't stand, didn't acknowledge the applause. He just sat at his workstation, staring at the screens, his shoulders sagging with exhaustion so profound it looked like physical pain. Evelyn stepped forward and crouched beside his chair, speaking quietly enough that only he could hear. Thank you, she said. Noah turned to look at her. His eyes were bloodshot, his face gray with fatigue. He looked like he might collapse at any moment. "Don't thank me," he said. His voice was rough. "I didn't do this for you." "I know. The people you almost destroyed today, the engineers, the customers, the families depending on this company, they're the ones who matter." "I know." Noah held her gaze for another moment. Then he stood up, swaying slightly. "I need to go home," he said. "My daughter's waiting." Evelyn stood with him. "Noah." "We're done here," Noah said. "You got what you needed." He walked away, moving through the crowd of cheering engineers like a ghost. Nobody tried to stop him. They just watched him go, this quiet man who had carried them all on his back while nobody noticed. Evelyn watched him disappear into the elevator. Then she turned and looked at the operations floor, at the systems he'd saved, at the people whose lives he'd protected, at the empire that existed only because one exhausted father had refused to give up. And for the first time in her career, Evelyn Carter understood the difference between authority and leadership. She had the power to fire people, to make decisions, to control outcomes. But Noah Hayes had something she'd never possessed: the quiet strength to carry the weight of the world without needing anyone to notice. The board meeting started at 8 o'clock the following morning, and Evelyn walked into it knowing she was walking into an execution. The conference room occupied the entire west side of the 44th floor, a space designed to intimidate, with a table long enough to seat 20 people and windows that turned the city below into a backdrop for power. 11 board members were already seated when Evelyn arrived, their faces arranged in expressions ranging from concern to barely concealed hostility. Martin Cross sat at the head of the table. He was 63, silver-haired, and had been on the board longer than Evelyn had been alive. He was also the man who'd opposed her appointment as CEO until the very last vote. "Miss Carter," he said, his voice carrying the false warmth of a predator greeting its prey. "Thank you for joining us." Evelyn took her seat. "I apologize for the crisis yesterday." "Apologize." Martin folded his hands on the table. "That's an interesting word choice. Would you also apologize for a plane crash, a natural disaster?" "The crisis wasn't a natural disaster. It was preventable. And yet it happened." "Yes, it happened because I made a critical error in judgment on my first day." The words landed in silence. Several board members exchanged glances. Martin leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Go on," he said. Evelyn took a breath. "I fired our lead infrastructure specialist without understanding his role in the organization. He had been actively preventing a cyber attack for 48 hours. When I removed him and authorized a system restart, the attack activated. We nearly lost everything." "Nearly," Martin said. "But didn't. Why?" "Because I convinced him to come back." "The man you fired?" "Yes." "The man you publicly humiliated in front of 300 employees?" Evelyn's jaw tightened. "Yes." Martin smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "How did that conversation go? I'm curious." "I apologized. I asked for help. He agreed, but only to protect the people who would be hurt if the company failed." "How noble!" Martin's voice dripped with sarcasm. "And where is this hero now?" "He left after fixing the system. He made it clear he has no intention of returning. So we're vulnerable again." "Yes." Another board member spoke up. Patricia Chen, the CFO's mentor and one of the few people in the room who'd supported Evelyn's appointment. "What's being done to address the vulnerability?" "I'm working on a plan," Evelyn said. "Working on it," Martin repeated. "Forgive me, but that sounds like something we pay consultants to say when they have no idea what they're doing." Evelyn met his gaze directly. "You're right, I don't have all the answers yet, but I'm not going to pretend I do just to make this conversation more comfortable." The room went quiet. 2 days ago," Martin said slowly, "you stood in front of this board and promised us that you were ready to lead, that you understood the weight of responsibility, that we could trust you with a billion-dollar enterprise." He leaned forward. "Were you lying, or were you simply delusional?" The question was designed to corner her. Admit to lying, and she was dishonest. Admit to delusion, and she was incompetent. Either way, the board would have grounds to remove her. Evelyn didn't take the bait. "I believed I was ready," she said. "I was wrong. Leadership isn't about having all the answers on day one. It's about recognizing your mistakes fast enough to fix them before they become catastrophic." And you think you fixed this one? The system is secure. The attack is neutralized. No customer funds were permanently lost. Yes, I think we contained it. Contained, Martin said. Not prevented, not avoided. Contained. Yes. That's not the kind of leadership this company needs. Evelyn felt her temper flare, but she kept her voice level. Then what kind does it need? Someone who pretends mistakes don't happen? Someone who fires the people asking questions and promotes the ones who stay quiet? Someone who doesn't create disasters in the first place? I agree. And I won't make the same mistake twice. Martin smiled again, that cold, predatory expression. You won't have the chance. I'm calling for a vote of no confidence. The words hit like a physical blow. Evelyn had known this was coming, had prepared for it even, but hearing it spoken aloud still felt like the floor dropping out from beneath her. Patricia's voice cut through the tension. That's premature, Martin. Is it? She's been CEO for 36 hours and already drove the company to the brink of collapse. She also saved it, by begging the man she fired to come back. That's not leadership, Patricia. That's desperation. It's accountability, Patricia said sharply. She recognized her mistake, swallowed her pride, and did what needed to be done. That takes more courage than most people in this room have ever shown. Martin's expression darkened. Are you defending her performance? I'm defending the idea that we don't destroy someone's career over a single error in judgment, especially when they handled the consequences better than most of us would have. The board doesn't have the luxury of patience. The board has the responsibility of rational decision-making, Patricia shot back, not panic. The argument escalated, voices rising, other board members joining in. Evelyn sat silently, watching her future being debated like a stock price. Finally, Martin raised his hand for silence. Enough, he said. We'll table the vote for now. But Ms. Carter, understand this. You're on probation. One more mistake of this magnitude and you're done. No second chances, no appeals. Evelyn nodded. Understood. You have 60 days to prove you can lead this company. Don't waste them. The meeting adjourned. Board members filed out in small clusters, some avoiding eye contact with Evelyn, others offering tight, sympathetic smiles that felt like pity. Patricia lingered behind. That was closer than it should have been, she said quietly. I know. Martin's been waiting for an excuse to remove you since the day you were appointed. You handed it to him on a silver platter. I'm aware. Patricia studied her. What are you going to do? Fix it. How? Evelyn looked out the window at the city below. Somewhere out there, Noah Hayes was probably trying to explain to his daughter why he'd gone back to help the people who'd thrown him away. I don't know yet, Evelyn admitted, but I'll figure it out. Patricia touched her shoulder briefly. 60 days isn't much time. Then I'd better not waste it. After Patricia left, Evelyn stood alone in the conference room, staring at her reflection in the glass. She looked tired, older than 30, like someone who'd just had their first real glimpse of how much they didn't know. She pulled out her phone and stared at Noah Hayes' contact information for a long time before putting it away again. He'd made it clear he was done. Pushing him would only make things worse. She'd have to find another way. The problem was, she had no idea what that way looked like. A sick. 3 days passed. The crisis had been contained, but the damage rippled outward in ways Evelyn hadn't anticipated. News of the near collapse leaked to the press. Stock prices dropped. Customers started asking questions. Competitors began circling like sharks sensing blood in the water. And inside the company, morale cratered. Evelyn spent those 3 days in meetings, with the executive team, with department heads, with increasingly anxious investors. Everyone wanted reassurance. Everyone wanted answers. Everyone wanted to know that the person in charge actually knew what they were doing. Evelyn did her best. She spoke with confidence she didn't entirely feel. She made promises she wasn't certain she could keep. She smiled until her face hurt and projected competence until she wanted to scream. But at night, alone in her apartment, she couldn't stop thinking about Noah Hayes. About the way he'd looked at her when she'd shown up at his door, betrayed, exhausted, but ultimately willing to help anyway. About his daughter's question, why did you fire him if he was trying to help? About the fact that the company had survived only because one man had been too decent to let innocent people suffer for someone else's mistake. On the fourth morning, Evelyn made a decision. She called Rachel Voss into her office. "I need you to tell me everything about Noah Hayes," Evelyn said. Rachel blinked. "Everything? How long he's worked here, what he's accomplished, why nobody listened to him, why he was asleep at his desk that morning. All of it." Rachel sat down slowly. "This is going to take a while." "I have time." Rachel took a breath. "Noah started here 6 years ago, fresh out of grad school. He was brilliant, everyone could see that, but he was also quiet. Didn't play politics, didn't network, just put his head down and worked." "What kind of work?" "Infrastructure security. He was hired to maintain existing systems, but within a year, he'd redesigned half of them, made everything faster, more secure, more efficient. He built tools that saved the company millions and prevented fraud alone. So why wasn't he promoted?" Rachel hesitated. "Because he didn't ask for it, and because the people above him took credit for his work." Evelyn felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Explain." "Noah would build something brilliant. His supervisor would present it to management as a team effort. Management would praise the supervisor. Noah would go back to his desk and keep working. It happened over and over." "And he never complained?" "Once, early on. He filed a formal complaint about his supervisor taking credit for a major security protocol Noah had designed. HR investigated, found in the supervisor's favor because there was no documentation proving Noah had done the work solo, and after that, Noah just stopped trying." Evelyn leaned back in her chair. "Why did he stay?" "Because he cared about the work, about protecting people, about building systems that actually functioned instead of just looking impressive in presentations." Rachel paused. "And because he needed the job. Single father, medical bills from his wife's illness. He couldn't afford to leave." The words hit like stones. "His wife died? 4 years ago, cancer. Noah burned through his savings trying to save her. When she died, he was left with a daughter, a mountain of debt, and a job he couldn't quit even though it was grinding him down." Evelyn felt sick. "And nobody helped him?" "A few people tried. I offered to talk to HR about getting him promoted. He said no. Said he didn't want charity." Rachel's voice went quiet. "Noah's not good at asking for help. He just carries everything himself until he breaks." "Is that what happened, the morning I found him?" Rachel nodded. "He'd been tracking suspicious network activity for weeks, tried to flag it through proper channels. Nobody took it seriously. Then 48 hours before you started, the activity spiked. Noah realized it was a coordinated attack preparing to activate, so he just didn't leave. Stayed at his desk, building defenses, isolating infected systems, trying to contain something that should have required a whole team. Why didn't he call in the security team? He did. They told him to file a report and wait for management to evaluate it. Standard protocol. Noah knew there wasn't time for standard protocol, so he handled it himself. For 48 hours straight. Yes. Without sleep. Without sleep. Without eating, really. Just coffee and adrenaline and sheer, stubborn determination to keep the company alive. Rachel met Evelyn's gaze. That's what you walked into. That's the man you fired. Evelyn was quiet for a long time. Why didn't anyone tell me? She asked finally. I tried. Right after you fired him. You said the decision was final. Before that, why didn't anyone warn me before I made the decision? Rachel looked uncomfortable. Because we didn't know you were going to fire him. You walked in, saw him asleep, and made the call in under 2 minutes. There wasn't time. Evelyn closed her eyes. I didn't ask any questions. No, you didn't. I just assumed. Yes. That he was lazy, incompetent, expendable. Yes. Evelyn opened her eyes. I need to fix this. How? I don't know yet, but I can't lead this company knowing that the person who saved it is gone because I was too arrogant to listen. Rachel hesitated. Noah's not coming back, Evelyn. I've known him for 6 years. Once he makes a decision, he doesn't change his mind. Then I'll have to change it for him. How? Evelyn stood up. By doing what I should have done the first time, actually listening. Evelyn showed up at Noah's apartment at 7 o'clock that evening, carrying a briefcase and a paper bag from the Thai restaurant 2 blocks from headquarters. She knocked on the door. Lily answered again, wearing pajamas with cartoon cats on them. Hi, Lily said. You're back. I am. Is your father home? He's making dinner. Would you tell him I brought food? Lily considered this. Then she turned and called back into the apartment. Daddy, the CEO lady brought Thai food. There was a pause. Then Noah's voice, wary. Tell her I'm not interested. She can hear you, Lily said. You're being rude. Despite everything, Evelyn almost smiled. Noah appeared in the hallway, wearing an apron with a cartoon chicken on it and holding a wooden spoon. He looked better than he had 4 days ago. The shadows under his eyes had faded slightly, and he moved with less exhaustion, but his expression when he saw Evelyn was pure suspicion. What are you doing here? He asked. I came to apologize. Properly this time. You already apologized. I apologized because I needed your help. That's not the same as apologizing because I was wrong. Noah stared at her. What's the difference? About 10,000 words of explanation, if you'll let me inside. I'm making dinner for my daughter. Evelyn held up the paper bag. I brought pad thai, green curry, and spring rolls. Enough for 3 people. Noah looked at Lily, who was watching this exchange with bright, curious eyes. Can she stay, Daddy? Lily asked. I like spring rolls. Noah sighed. Fine, but just for dinner. The apartment was smaller than Evelyn had expected. A converted loft with exposed brick walls, mismatched furniture that looked salvaged from thrift stores, and a kitchen separated from the living space by a half wall. But it was clean, organized, and filled with small signs of life. Lily's artwork taped to the refrigerator, books stacked on every available surface, a laptop open on the coffee table, displaying lines of code that never stopped scrolling. Noah was still monitoring the company's systems, even after everything. They ate at a small table near the kitchen. Lily dominated the conversation, telling Evelyn about her school, her friends, and a field trip to the science museum where she'd learned about volcanoes. Noah mostly stayed quiet, watching Evelyn with an expression she couldn't quite read. After dinner, Noah sent Lily to brush her teeth and get ready for bed. Then he turned to Evelyn. All right, he said. You came here to apologize properly, so do it. Evelyn set down her water glass. I judged you without knowing anything about you. I saw what I expected to see, someone not meeting my standards, and I didn't ask questions. I didn't consider that there might be a reason you were asleep. I didn't listen when people tried to warn me. I just made a decision based on appearance and ego. Yes, Noah said. You did. And I'm sorry. Not because I need something from you, but because what I did was cruel, short-sighted, and unforgivable. Noah was quiet for a moment. What do you want, Evelyn? I want to know if there's any way I can make this right. You can't. I have to try. Why? Because I can't lead a company that only values people when they're useful. And I can't live with myself knowing I destroyed someone's dignity because I was too arrogant to see them as human. Noah studied her face. You're serious? Yes. You actually care about this? Yes. Why? You barely know me. Evelyn hesitated. Because your daughter asked me a question I couldn't answer. What question? She asked why I fired you if you were trying to help, and I didn't have a good reason, just a bad assumption. Noah leaned back in his chair. Lily has a way of cutting through bullshit. She gets that from you, I think. Maybe. They sat in silence for a while. From the bathroom, Evelyn could hear water running, Lily humming something off-key. I talked to Rachel, Evelyn said. She told me about your wife, your debt, the way people took credit for your work. Noah's expression hardened. I don't need pity. I'm not offering pity. I'm offering understanding. What's the difference? Pity is looking down on someone. Understanding is seeing them clearly. Noah shook his head. You don't see me clearly. You see what you need me to be so you can feel better about what you did. The words stung because they were partially true. Maybe, Evelyn admitted, but I'm trying to do better. That has to count for something. Does it? I don't know. You tell me. Noah looked at her for a long time. Then he stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the city lights. When my wife got sick, he said quietly, I did everything I could to save her. Worked overtime, took on extra projects, burned through our savings on treatments that didn't work. And when she died anyway, I was left with nothing except debt and a 7-year-old daughter who'd just lost her mother. Evelyn stayed silent, letting him talk. I kept working because I had to. Because Lily needed food and clothes and a roof over her head. Because quitting wasn't an option. Noah's voice was steady, but edged with something raw. And I was good at my job. Really good. But nobody noticed, or they noticed and didn't care. I was just the quiet guy in the corner who fixed things when they broke. Until they needed you, Evelyn said softly. Until they needed me, Noah agreed. And even then, the only reason anyone paid attention was because I failed, because I was so exhausted I couldn't stay awake. He turned to face her. You want to make this right? He asked. You can't. What's done is done. But if you want to be a better leader, start by actually seeing the people who work for you, not their productivity metrics, not their quarterly reviews, them, their lives, their struggles, the reasons they show up every day, even when everything is falling apart. Evelyn nodded slowly. You're right. I know I am. I want you to come back. Noah laughed, a short, bitter sound. Of course you do. Not because I need you to save the company again, because you deserve better than what happened. I deserve a lot of things. Doesn't mean I'll get them. Noah, the answer is no, Evelyn. I'm not coming back. Why? Because I don't trust you. Because I don't trust the company. Because I've spent 6 years being invisible, and the one time someone finally noticed me, they threw me away like garbage. His voice was quiet, but absolute. I'm done. Evelyn felt something crack inside her chest. She'd known this was possible, probable even, but hearing him say it out loud still hurt. I understand, she said. Do you? No, but I'm trying to. Noah shook his head. You should go. Evelyn stood up. Before she could say anything else, Lily appeared in the doorway, wearing pajamas and holding her stuffed rabbit. Are you leaving? Lily asked. Yes, sweetheart, Evelyn said. Your dad and I finished talking. Did you make him feel better? The question caught Evelyn off guard. I tried. Lily looked at her father, then back at Evelyn. He's still sad. I know. Are you going to fix it? Evelyn knelt down, bringing herself to Lily's eye level. I'm going to try, but some things take time to fix. My dad says if something's worth doing, it's worth doing even if it's hard. Your dad is very wise, Lily smiled. Then she walked over to Noah and took his hand. Can we read a story before bed? Sure, sweetheart. Evelyn gathered her briefcase and headed for the door. Noah followed her, still holding Lily's hand. At the threshold, Evelyn paused. Thank you for letting me inside, she said. Thank Lily, Noah replied. She likes spring rolls. Evelyn almost smiled. Then she looked at him seriously. The offer stands if you change your mind about anything. I won't. I know, but it stands anyway. She left before he could respond. As she walked down the 3 flights of stairs and out into the cold evening air, Evelyn felt the weight of failure settling on her shoulders. She'd tried. She'd apologized. She'd been honest, and it hadn't been enough. Maybe some mistakes couldn't be fixed. Maybe some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. But as she drove back through the city toward her empty apartment, she thought about what Noah had said, about seeing people, really seeing them. And she decided that even if she couldn't fix what she'd broken with Noah Hayes, she could at least make sure she never broke someone that way again. It wasn't redemption, but maybe it was a start. The company moved forward because it had no choice. Evelyn spent the following 2 weeks implementing changes. She mandated regular check-ins with department heads. She opened direct communication channels for engineers to report security concerns without going through bureaucratic chains. She personally reviewed the workload distributions and found dozens of people being ground down the same way Noah had been. She started fixing what she could. But the infrastructure security position remained unfilled. Rachel Voss had been running emergency recruitment, but every candidate they interviewed was either unqualified or unwilling to take on a role with such overwhelming responsibility. We need Noah, Rachel said bluntly during their 3rd emergency staffing meeting. Noah's not coming back, Evelyn replied. Then we're vulnerable. Another attack like the last one, and we won't survive it. I know. So what's your plan? Evelyn stared at the empty chair across from her desk. The chair where Noah had sat 4 days ago, exhausted and betrayed but willing to help anyway. I don't have one, she admitted. That's not good enough. I know that too. Rachel leaned forward. Evelyn, I respect what you're trying to do. The changes you're making are good, important even. But this company's infrastructure is still fragile, and the only person who truly understands it is someone you fired and can't get back. So what do you suggest? I suggest you stop being proud and beg. I already tried. Try harder. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, what if he doesn't want to be convinced? What if the best thing I can do for Noah Hayes is leave him alone? Rachel considered this. Then maybe you're not trying to get him back for the company. Maybe you're trying for yourself. What's that supposed to mean? It means you feel guilty. And guilt is a terrible reason to make business decisions. The words landed hard because they were true. Evelyn dismissed Rachel and sat alone in her office, staring out at the city. Somewhere out there, Noah Hayes was probably reading bedtime stories to his daughter, building a life that didn't include the company that had chewed him up and spit him out. And Evelyn was sitting in a corner office, surrounded by the trappings of power, wondering why it all felt so empty. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You left your scarf at my apartment. Lily wants to return it. Evelyn stared at the message. She hadn't been wearing a scarf. Then she understood. It was an excuse, an opening, a reason for her to come back that didn't require Noah to admit he wanted to see her again. She typed a response. I'll pick it up tomorrow evening if that works. The reply came 30 seconds later, 6 p.m. Evelyn set down her phone and allowed herself the smallest smile. Maybe some bridges could be rebuilt after all, just not in the way anyone expected. Evelyn arrived at Noah's apartment the following evening at exactly 6 o'clock, carrying nothing but her phone and a growing sense that she was walking into something she didn't fully understand. Lily opened the door before Evelyn could knock. Hi, the little girl said brightly. I found your scarf. She held up a blue scarf that Evelyn had never seen before in her life. Thank you, Evelyn said, taking it carefully. That was very thoughtful of you. Lily beamed. Then she lowered her voice to a stage whisper. Daddy says I have to do homework, but I think he just wants to talk to you alone. Lily, Noah's voice came from inside the apartment, carrying a note of exasperation. Lily giggled and disappeared back into the apartment. Evelyn stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Noah was sitting at the small dining table, his laptop open in front of him, wearing jeans and a faded college sweatshirt. He looked more rested than he had during their last conversation, but there was still a wariness in his eyes when he looked at her. Nice scarf, he said dryly. Very nice. I don't remember buying it, but I'm glad it turned up. Lily's idea. She said you looked sad when you left last time. She's perceptive. She is. Noah closed his laptop. I didn't ask you here to return a scarf. I know. I asked you here because I've been thinking about what you said, about trying to do better. Evelyn sat down across from him. And I don't know if I believe you yet, but I think I want to. The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. That's more than I deserve. Probably. Noah leaned back in his chair. But Lily asked me something yesterday that I couldn't answer. What did she ask? She asked if the CEO lady was my friend now. Evelyn felt something tighten in her chest. What did you tell her? I told her I didn't know. And she said that was a stupid answer because you can always know if someone's your friend. You just have to decide if you want them to be. She's 7 years old and she's already smarter than both of us. Noah almost smiled. Yeah, she is. He was quiet for a moment. The truth is, I've spent the last 2 weeks trying to hate you, trying to convince myself that you're just another corporate executive who doesn't care about anything except the bottom line. And I can't make it stick. Because you keep showing up, you keep trying, you keep acting like you actually give a damn, even though it would be easier for you to just move on and hire someone else. There is no one else, Evelyn said quietly. Rachel's been recruiting for 2 weeks. Every qualified candidate takes one look at the workload and walks away. Because the workload is insane. I was doing the job of 4 people. I know, I looked at the logs. You were working 70, 80-hour weeks for years. Noah's jaw tightened. And nobody noticed. No, they didn't. Until I broke. Yes. They sat in uncomfortable silence. I'm changing that, Evelyn said. The workload, I mean. I can't fix what happened to you, but I can make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. How? I'm restructuring the entire infrastructure security department. 4 full-time positions instead of 1. Reasonable hours, actual support, people who can cover for each other when someone needs time off. Noah looked skeptical. The board approved that? Not yet, but they will. You sound confident. I am, because I'm not asking for permission. I'm telling them it's happening, and if they don't like it, they can find a new CEO. Noah stared at her. You'd risk your job over this. Yes. Why? Because it's the right thing to do, and because I'm tired of leading a company that only values people when they're useful. Noah was quiet for a long time, studying her face like he was trying to decide if she was telling the truth. Finally, he said, I've been monitoring your systems remotely, keeping an eye on things. I know, Rachel told me. She noticed? She notices everything. It's why she's good at her job. Noah shook his head. I can't seem to let go, even after everything. I keep checking the security logs, watching for anomalies, making sure nothing's breaking. Why? Because if I don't, who will? The temporary contractors Rachel hired are competent, but they don't know the systems the way I do. They're treating symptoms, not causes. So come back and fix it properly. I told you. I know what you told me, but you're still watching, still caring, still protecting people even though you don't work there anymore. Evelyn leaned forward. That's not someone who's done. That's someone who's waiting for a reason to come back. You're wrong. Am I? Noah stood up abruptly and walked to the window. You don't know what it was like, spending 6 years being invisible, watching other people get promoted for work I did, showing up every day to a job that ground me down piece by piece until I had nothing left. You're right. I don't know, but I'm trying to understand. Understanding doesn't fix it. No, but action does. Noah turned to face her. What are you offering, Evelyn? A different kind of job. Not the same position you had before, something new. I'm listening. Head of Infrastructure Security. Not just you doing the work, but you building and leading a team. 4 qualified people working under you. Reasonable hours built into the contract. And full authority to make security decisions without going through management approval. That position doesn't exist. It does now. I created it yesterday. Noah blinked. You created an entirely new executive position? Yes? Without board approval? I have 60 days to prove I can lead this company. I'm choosing to prove it by building something better than what existed before. And if the board says no, then I'll fight them. And if I lose, at least I'll lose trying to do the right thing. Noah walked back to the table and sat down. What's the salary? Evelyn told him. His eyes widened. That's 3 times what I was making before. It's the market rate for an executive security position. What you were making before was exploitation. I can't. Noah stopped, running a hand through his hair. That's life-changing money. I know. Lily could go to a better school. I could pay off the medical debt. I could actually save for her college. Yes, you could. Noah looked at her, something shifting in his expression. Why are you doing this? Because you deserve it. Because the company needs you. Because I made a mistake, and I'm trying to make it right. This isn't just making it right. This is... He shook his head. This is too much. It's what you're worth. To you, maybe. But what about to the board? What about to the people who took credit for my work before? I don't care what they think. You should. They can destroy you. Let them try. Noah stared at her for a long moment. Then he said, very quietly, I don't know if I can trust you. The words landed between them like a stone. I understand, Evelyn said. Do you? Because trust isn't something you build overnight. It's not something you fix with a good salary and a fancy title. I know. Then what are you asking me for? Evelyn took a breath. I'm asking you to take a chance, not on me, on the possibility that things could be different, that you could build something worth building, that you could lead a team and protect people and do work that matters without being ground down in the process. And if it doesn't work out, then you walk away. I'll put it in writing. 6-month trial period. If at any point you decide this isn't working, you can leave with full severance and a reference letter that accurately describes everything you've accomplished. You'd put that in a contract? Yes. Noah was quiet, his fingers drumming against the table. Evelyn could see him thinking, weighing risks, trying to decide if this was real or just another version of the same broken system wearing a different mask. From the other room, Lily's voice called out, "Daddy, can I have a snack?" "In a minute, sweetheart," Noah called back. He looked at Evelyn. "I need time to think about this. Take all the time you need. And I want to see the contract before I agree to anything." "Of course. And I want to meet the people you're hiring for my team. Interview them myself. Make sure they're actually qualified and not just warm bodies to fill positions." "Done." Noah shook his head slowly. "You're serious about this?" "Completely." "Why?" "Because you saved the company, and the company destroyed you. And if I can't fix that, then I have no business leading anything." Before Noah could respond, Lily appeared in the doorway, still holding her stuffed rabbit. "Are you staying for dinner again?" she asked Evelyn. Evelyn glanced at Noah, who looked caught off guard. "I don't want to impose," Evelyn started. "You're not imposing," Lily said firmly. "Daddy made too much spaghetti anyway. He always makes too much." "That's because you said you were hungry," Noah protested. "I am hungry, but not for all that spaghetti." Despite everything, Evelyn laughed. "I'd love to stay for dinner." Lily beamed and disappeared back toward the kitchen. Noah sighed. "She's decided you're okay. Once she decides something, there's no changing her mind." "I'm honored by her approval." "You should be. She's a tough critic." They moved to the kitchen, where Noah had indeed made enough spaghetti to feed a small army. Lily set the table with careful concentration, placing forks and napkins with the precision of someone who took the task very seriously. Over dinner, the conversation shifted away from contracts and job offers. Lily dominated again, telling stories about her teacher, her best friend Emma, and a class project involving volcanoes that had gone spectacularly wrong. "Everyone's volcano was supposed to do a little fizz," Lily explained through a mouthful of spaghetti. "But mine exploded everywhere. It got on the ceiling." "Did you get in trouble?" Evelyn asked. "No, Mrs. Patterson said it was enthusiastic." Lily said the word carefully, like she'd practiced it. "But I had to help clean up." "That seems fair," Evelyn said. "I told her next time I'd make it explode even bigger." Noah choked on his water. "You did not." "I did," and she laughed. Watching them together, the easy affection, the comfortable teasing, the way Noah's entire face softened when he looked at his daughter. Evelyn felt something shift inside her. This was what she'd almost destroyed. Not just a career or a job, but a life, a family, a little girl who needed her father to come home at night. After dinner, Lily asked if Evelyn wanted to see her room. Noah started to protest, but Evelyn said yes before he could stop her. Lily's room was small but carefully organized. A bed with a patchwork quilt, shelves filled with books and stuffed animals, a desk with art supplies arranged in neat rows, and on the wall above the desk, a drawing that made Evelyn's breath catch. It was a crayon picture of 3 people, a tall man, a little girl, and another figure standing slightly apart. Above the separate figure, Lily had written in careful block letters, "The CEO lady, who made Daddy sad but said sorry." "I drew that yesterday," Lily said, noticing where Evelyn was looking. "It's very good," Evelyn managed. "I wasn't sure what color your hair was, so I guessed." "You guessed right." Lily studied the drawing critically. "I think next time I'll draw you closer to us. Because you're not mean anymore." Evelyn knelt down beside her. "Lily, can I tell you something?" "Okay." "I was mean to your dad, and saying sorry doesn't erase that. But I'm going to try very hard to be better. To be the kind of person who deserves to be in a picture with you." Lily considered this with the same serious expression she'd worn when setting the dinner table. Then she said, "Mrs. Patterson says everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is learning from them. Your teacher is very wise." "I know. She's my favorite." Lily went back to arranging stuffed animals on her bed. Evelyn stood up and found Noah standing in the doorway, watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read. "She likes you," he said quietly. "I like her too. She's remarkable." "She is." Noah paused. "She doesn't usually warm up to people this fast. But she's decided you're trying to make things right, so in her mind, you're already forgiven. I wish it were that simple. With kids, it is. With adults, not so much. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Lily arrange and rearrange her stuffed animals in some pattern only she understood. I'm going to think about your offer, Noah said finally. Really think about it. Not just the money or the title, but whether I can actually work for you without resenting you every day. That's fair? And I need to know this isn't just guilt, that you're not building this position because you feel bad about what happened. I'm building it because the company needs it, because people deserve better. And yes, because I feel guilty. But guilt can be a good motivator if it pushes you to create something that should have existed all along. Noah nodded slowly. I'll have an answer for you in 3 days. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I might say no. I know, but thank you for considering it. Evelyn said goodbye to Lily, who hugged her with surprising fierceness, then made her way back downstairs to her car. As she drove through the dark streets toward her apartment, she found herself thinking about that crayon drawing. The CEO lady who made Daddy sad but said sorry. It wasn't forgiveness, but maybe it was the beginning of something that could eventually become forgiveness, if she earned it, if she proved she meant what she said, if she could build something worth believing in. 3 days passed slowly. Evelyn threw herself into work, using the nervous energy of waiting to push through the restructuring plans she'd promised. She drafted job descriptions for the new security team positions. She met with HR to establish reasonable workload standards. She prepared a presentation for the board that laid out exactly why this investment was necessary. Rachel noticed the change immediately. You're different, she said during one of their daily check-ins. Different how? Evelyn asked. Focused. Like you actually know what you're fighting for now instead of just fighting to survive. Maybe I do. Is this about Noah? Evelyn hesitated. It's about doing things right. Noah's just the catalyst. He's going to say yes, you know. You sound confident. I am. Because I know Noah, and I know that what you're offering isn't just a job. It's a chance to build something that protects people the way he wishes someone had protected him. What if he says no? Then you keep building it anyway. Because it's the right thing to do regardless of whether Noah Hayes is the one leading it. Rachel was right, of course, but Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that Noah was supposed to be the one. That somehow, this entire disaster had happened specifically to bring them to this point. On the third day, at exactly 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Evelyn's phone buzzed. A text from Noah. Can we meet? Same coffee shop where you bought the scarf, 5 p.m. Evelyn stared at the message. Then she typed back, I'll be there. The coffee shop was a small place 3 blocks from Noah's apartment, the kind of neighborhood spot with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. Evelyn arrived 10 minutes early and ordered tea she didn't drink, watching the door. Noah walked in at exactly 5 o'clock, carrying a folder and wearing an expression that gave nothing away. He sat down across from her. I read your contract, he said without preamble. 3 times. And it's the most employee-friendly contract I've ever seen. 6-month trial period with full severance if either party wants to end it. Protected time off, clear boundaries around workload. A reporting structure that gives me authority without bureaucratic interference. He set the folder on the table. It's almost too good to be true. But I have conditions. Evelyn nodded. I'm listening. Noah opened the folder and pulled out a handwritten list. First, I want approval authority over every person hired for my team, not just interview input, final approval. Done. Second, I want quarterly reviews where I assess the company's commitment to the security infrastructure. If I think we're backsliding into old patterns, I want the right to call it out publicly without fear of retaliation. Done. Third, I want a protected budget line that can't be cut without board approval. Security infrastructure isn't optional, and I won't fight for funding every quarter like it's some kind of luxury expense. Done. Noah looked up from his list. You're agreeing to everything. Because everything you're asking for is reasonable. These aren't conditions, Noah. They're basic professional standards. Most companies don't see it that way. Then most companies are wrong. Noah was quiet for a moment, studying her face. Then he said, last condition. And this one's not negotiable. What is it? If I come back, I need to know you'll actually listen to me. Not just when there's a crisis. Not just when you need something, but all the time. When I tell you something's wrong. When I raise concerns, when I push back on decisions I think are dangerous. His voice was steady, but intense. I can't work for someone who only hears me when it's convenient. Evelyn met his gaze directly. I will listen. I will hear you. And I will take your concerns seriously, even when they're inconvenient. Especially when they're inconvenient. How can I trust that? You can't. Not yet. Trust has to be earned, and I haven't earned it. But I'm asking you to give me the chance to prove it. Noah stared at her. Then slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a pen. Show me where to sign, he said. Evelyn felt something release in her chest. Relief, gratitude, hope, all mixed together. She pulled out her copy of the contract and slid it across the table. Noah read through it one more time, slowly, carefully. Then he signed his name at the bottom. When do I start? He asked. Whenever you're ready. I need 2 weeks to arrange things with Lily. Make sure her after-school care is set up properly. Talk to her teacher about my schedule. Take 3 weeks if you need it. 2 is fine. Noah looked down at the signed contract. This feels surreal. Which part? All of it. 3 weeks ago you fired me. Now I'm signing a contract to come back as an executive. It's like I'm living in someone else's life. Maybe you're living in the life you should have had all along. Maybe. Noah slid the contract back across the table. Don't make me regret this, Evelyn. I won't. I'm serious. If you go back to being the person who fired me without asking questions, I'm gone. Contract or no contract. I understand. Do you? Because I'm taking a huge risk here. I'm trusting you with my career, my daughter's future, my ability to keep putting food on the table. If you screw this up, I won't, Evelyn said firmly. I can't promise I'll be perfect. I can't promise I won't make mistakes. But I can promise I'll listen, I'll learn, and I'll never dismiss you without hearing what you have to say. Noah held her gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay? Okay? Okay. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of what they'd just agreed to settling between them. Finally, Noah said, Lily's going to be excited. She's been asking every day if you're coming back. I'm excited to work with you, really excited. Don't be. I'm going to be a pain in your ass. I'm going to question decisions, push back on stupid policies, and refuse to let things slide just because that's how we've always done it. Evelyn smiled. Good. That's exactly what I need. You say that now. I mean it. Noah almost smiled back. We'll see. He stood up to leave, then paused. One more thing. What? Thank you. For trying. Even when I made it hard, even when I told you to leave me alone, you kept showing up anyway. I owed you that much. No. You owed me an apology and a decent severance package. Everything else was a choice. So thank you. Before Evelyn could respond, Noah was gone, disappearing out into the evening streets. Evelyn sat alone with her cold tea and the signed contract, feeling something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Not the desperate, grasping hope of someone trying to save their career, but the quiet, steady hope of someone who might actually be building something worth building. She pulled out her phone and texted Rachel. He signed. The response came back immediately. I told you he would. Now don't screw it up. Evelyn smiled and typed, I'll try not to. The following Monday, Evelyn presented her security infrastructure restructuring plan to the board. Martin Cross listened with barely concealed hostility, his expression growing darker with every slide. When Evelyn finished, he was the first to speak. Let me make sure I understand correctly, he said. You want to create an entirely new executive position, hire 4 additional full-time security engineers, and allocate a protected budget line that requires board approval to modify. All for a department that's been functioning adequately with temporary contractors. Functioning barely, Evelyn corrected. We've had 3 near-miss security incidents in the past 2 weeks alone. The contractors are skilled, but they lack institutional knowledge. We need permanent, dedicated staff. And you just happen to have someone in mind to lead this new department? I do, Noah Hayes. The room went silent. The man you fired, Martin said slowly, on your first day. in front of 300 employees. Yes. And you think bringing him back sends the right message? I think bringing him back sends the message that we value competence, that we admit when we're wrong, and that we're willing to invest in the people who keep this company running. Or it sends the message that the CEO makes impulsive decisions and then wastes company resources trying to undo them. Evelyn kept her voice level. The only impulsive decision I made was firing Noah without understanding his role. Everything since then has been deliberate, calculated, and necessary. Patricia Chen spoke up. I've reviewed the security incident logs. Martin, Evelyn's right. We've been lucky these past 2 weeks. We need real infrastructure protection. We need fiscal responsibility, Martin shot back. This restructuring plan costs millions. And a major security breach costs billions, Patricia replied, plus catastrophic reputational damage. I think Evelyn's being conservative, honestly. Conservative? Martin's voice rose. She's proposing we throw money at a problem she created. I created a crisis, Evelyn interrupted. But the underlying problem existed long before I arrived. Noah Hayes was doing the work of 4 people for years. We were exploiting him, and when he finally broke under the weight of it, I made it worse by firing him instead of asking questions. But the exploitation was already there. I just exposed it. Martin's eyes narrowed. You're saying this company has been run poorly? I'm saying we had gaps in our infrastructure that we were lucky didn't destroy us sooner. I'm proposing we fix those gaps properly instead of continuing to rely on luck. The room erupted in crosstalk, board members arguing, Patricia defending Evelyn's position, Martin attacking it. Evelyn sat quietly, letting them fight it out. Finally, the chairman called for order. We'll table this discussion, he said. Evelyn, I want a detailed cost-benefit analysis on my desk by Friday. We'll reconvene next week to vote. It wasn't approval. But it wasn't a rejection either. As the board members filed out, Patricia lingered behind. That went better than I expected, she said. Martin's going to fight this with everything he has, Evelyn replied. Of course he is, but you stood your ground. That matters. Will it be enough? I don't know, but you're doing the right thing, even if it costs you. Patricia left. Evelyn gathered her materials and headed back to her office, where Rachel was waiting with a knowing look. How bad? Rachel asked. Not terrible, not great. They want a cost-benefit analysis. I can have that ready by tomorrow. I know you can. Evelyn sank into her chair. Martin's going to make this ugly. Let him. You've got the moral high ground and the practical argument. That's hard to beat. Unless the board cares more about politics than protection. Then they're idiots, and you're better off knowing now. Evelyn laughed despite herself. You have a gift for cutting through bullshit. Years of practice. That evening, Evelyn worked late, reviewing security logs and financial projections, building the strongest case she could for the restructuring. Around 9 o'clock, her phone buzzed. A text from Noah. Lily wanted me to tell you she drew another picture. This time, you're holding hands with us. Evelyn stared at the message, feeling something warm and unexpected bloom in her chest. She typed back, Tell her I'm honored, and that I'll try to deserve being in that picture. The response came quickly. She says you already do. Kids are weird like that. Evelyn smiled. They see things clearly. We're the ones who make it complicated. Maybe. How are you feeling about starting in 2 weeks? There was a long pause before Noah's response appeared. Nervous, excited, terrified, all of the above. That sounds about right. What if I can't do this? What if I'm not ready to lead a team? Evelyn thought carefully before responding. You've been leading from behind the scenes for 6 years. You kept the entire infrastructure running when nobody else could. The only difference now is that people will actually see you doing it. That's what scares me. Being seen? Being seen and failing anyway. Evelyn understood that fear intimately. She'd felt it every day since becoming CEO. Then, we'll fail together, she typed, and figure it out as we go. The response took longer this time. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone who would give up when things got hard. Someone who would choose her career over doing the right thing. Is that what you think I'm doing? Choosing the right thing over my career? Aren't you? Evelyn considered the question. Martin was actively trying to remove her. The board was skeptical. Her 60-day probation was half over, and she'd spent most of it fighting battles that made her look weak and indecisive. Maybe, she typed, but if the choice is between keeping my job and building something worth building, I'll take the second option every time. Even if it costs you everything, especially then. There was a long pause. Then, Lily says goodnight, and so do I. Good night, Noah. Evelyn set down her phone and looked out at the city lights, thinking about the little girl who drew pictures of people holding hands and the father who'd spent 6 years carrying the weight of the world alone. She thought about the board meeting coming up, and Martin Cross's hostility, and the very real possibility that she might lose everything she'd worked for. And she realized something that felt both terrifying and freeing. She didn't care. Not about the title, not about the corner office, not about being the youngest CEO in company history. She cared about building something that didn't chew people up and spit them out, about creating a place where someone like Noah Hayes could do brilliant work without being destroyed in the process, about proving that leadership didn't have to mean choosing between people and profits. If she lost her job fighting for that, then at least she'd lose it standing for something real. Her phone buzzed one more time. Another text from Noah. One more thing. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I deserved it. Evelyn smiled and typed back. Thank you for giving me another chance, even when I didn't deserve it. We're even then, not even close, but we're getting there. Yeah, I think we are. Evelyn put her phone away and went back to work on the cost-benefit analysis, knowing that in 2 weeks Noah Hayes would walk back into the building, not as the man she'd fired, but as the leader of something they were building together. Something better. Something worth fighting for. Something that might actually last. The cost-benefit analysis landed on the chairman's desk Thursday afternoon. 200 pages of data, projections, and case studies that Rachel had helped Evelyn compile over 72 sleepless hours. By Friday morning, Evelyn's phone was ringing. We need to talk, the chairman said without preamble. My office. 1 hour. Evelyn arrived to find not just the chairman waiting, but Martin Cross and 2 other board members who'd voted against her appointment. The setup felt like an ambush. Your analysis is thorough, the chairman said, gesturing to the document on his desk. Perhaps too thorough. I wanted to be comprehensive, Evelyn replied. Martin leaned forward. What you've created is a manifesto for radical organizational change disguised as a security proposal. You're not just asking for infrastructure investment. You're asking us to fundamentally rethink how this company operates. Yes, I am. That's not what we hired you to do. You hired me to lead. Leadership means identifying problems and solving them, not maintaining systems that don't work. The systems work fine, one of the other board members interjected. We've been profitable for 15 consecutive quarters. We've been profitable despite our systems, not because of them, Evelyn countered. We survived the cyber attack by pure luck. If Noah Hayes hadn't been willing to come back after I fired him, we'd be bankrupt right now. One incident doesn't justify this level of expense, Martin said. It's not one incident. It's a pattern. I've documented 43 security near misses in the past 18 months alone. We've just been lucky they didn't cascade into catastrophes. The chairman studied her carefully. You realize what you're asking for sets a precedent. If we approve protected budget lines and expanded teams for security, every department will want the same treatment. Then maybe they should have it. Maybe we should stop running this company on the thinnest possible margins and start investing in the people who make it function. That's not how business works, Martin said flatly. It's how good business works. Companies that invest in their people outperform companies that don't. It's not even debatable. It's absolutely debatable. Gentlemen, the chairman interrupted. We're not here to argue philosophy. We're here to make a decision. He looked at Evelyn. The board votes Monday. I wanted to give you advance warning that it's going to be close. How close? 6-5? Maybe 5-6, depending on how the weekend goes. Evelyn felt her stomach drop. Which way is it leaning? Against you. Martin has been making calls. He's convinced 3 board members that you're too inexperienced to be making these kinds of structural changes. And what do you think? The chairman was quiet for a moment. I think you're either the best CEO this company's ever had, or you're about to destroy everything we've built. I haven't decided which yet. That's honest, at least. Honesty is all I have left at my age. He stood up. The vote's Monday at 9 a.m. I suggest you spend the weekend preparing. Preparing for what? The fight of your career. Evelyn left the building and drove aimlessly for an hour, trying to organize her thoughts. She ended up at the coffee shop near Noah's apartment without quite knowing how she got there. She texted him, "Are you home? I need to talk." The response came quickly. "Give me 10 minutes." 20 minutes later, Noah walked into the coffee shop carrying 2 paper cups. "I brought you tea," he said, setting one in front of her. "You look like you need it. That obvious?" You have that expression people get when they're trying to decide whether to fight or run. He sat down. What happened? Evelyn told him about the meeting, about Martin's opposition, about the board vote hanging by a single decision. Noah listened without interrupting. When she finished, he said, "You knew this would be hard." "I knew. I just didn't expect it to come down to politics over substance. It's always politics when the stakes are high enough." "I hate that." "I know. But hating it doesn't change it." Noah took a sip of his coffee. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. Fight, probably. I'm not good at backing down." "I've noticed." Evelyn managed a weak smile. "If the board votes against the restructuring, everything falls apart. The position I created for you disappears. The team we were going to build evaporates. We're back to square one. And you'll be out of a job." "Probably. Martin's made it clear he's using this vote as a referendum on my leadership." Noah was quiet for a moment. "Do you want me to talk to the board?" "What?" "I could present the technical case. Explain why the infrastructure needs this level of investment. Put a human face on what happens when companies undervalue their security teams." "Noah, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to, but you're fighting for something that benefits people like me. People who've been invisible. The least I can do is show up and make them see us." Evelyn felt something tighten in her chest. That would mean a lot. But it also means exposing yourself to Martin's attacks. He'll try to use your history against both of us. "Let him try. I've got nothing to be ashamed of." "I know, but it won't be pleasant." Noah shrugged. "Nothing about the last month has been pleasant. I'm getting used to it." Despite everything, Evelyn laughed. "When did you get a sense of humor?" "I've always had one. You just had to stop firing me long enough to notice." This time Evelyn laughed harder, the tension breaking slightly. Point taken. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, drinking their coffee and tea, watching the street outside. "Can I ask you something?" Noah said eventually. "Of course." "Why are you doing this? Really?" Not the corporate answer, the real answer. Evelyn considered the question. "Because I spent 12 years fighting to reach the top. And when I got there, I realized the view was ugly. I saw how the company actually worked, how people like you were used up and thrown away, how success was measured in quarters instead of decades, how everyone was replaceable except the people making the decisions." She paused. "I could either accept that as normal or try to change it. And I guess I'm not good at accepting things." "No, you're not." Noah studied her face. "What happens if you lose Monday?" "I get fired." "Martin takes over as interim CEO. Everything goes back to the way it was." "And you're okay with that?" "No. But I'd be less okay with winning by compromising on the things that matter." Noah nodded slowly. "You've changed." "How?" "When I first met you, you cared about looking strong. Now you care about being right. That's different. Is it better?" "I don't know. Ask me after Monday." Evelyn's phone buzzed. A text from Patricia Chen. "Need to talk. Can you meet me at my house tonight?" Evelyn showed Noah the message. Patricia was one of the board members who supported my appointment. If she's reaching out, it's either very good or very bad. Only one way to find out. "Yeah." Evelyn stood up. "Thank you for offering to speak to the board. It means more than you know." "Don't thank me yet. I might make things worse." "I doubt that. You have more faith in me than I have in myself." "Get used to it. That's part of being on a team." Noah almost smiled. "Is that what we are? A team?" "I hope so." "Yeah, me too." Patricia Chen lived in a brownstone in the historic district, an elegant 3-story building with ivy climbing the walls, and a garden that probably required a full-time gardener. She answered the door herself, wearing jeans and a sweater that made her look less like a corporate power player and more like someone's favorite aunt. "Come in," she said. "I made coffee. Real coffee, not that garbage they serve at headquarters." Evelyn followed her into a kitchen that smelled like cinnamon and vanilla. Patricia poured 2 cups and gestured to the kitchen table. "I'll be direct," Patricia said once they were seated. "Martin's been working the phones all weekend. He's got 6 votes locked against your restructuring proposal." Evelyn's heart sank. "That's a majority." "It is. But 2 of those votes are soft. They're voting no because Martin convinced them you're too aggressive, not because they actually disagree with your proposal." "Who are the soft votes?" "David Reeves and Margaret Liu. Both of them are worried about precedent. They think if they approve your request, every department head will start demanding protected budgets and expanded teams." "That's a legitimate concern." "It's a stupid concern," Patricia said bluntly. "Every department should be fighting for proper resources. The fact that they're not is a symptom of a broken culture, not a reason to maintain it. Can you convince them?" "Maybe. But I need ammunition. I need something that makes the cost of saying no scarier than the cost of saying yes." Evelyn thought for a moment. "What if we frame it differently? Not as a security proposal, but as a pilot program. 6 months to prove the concept works. If it doesn't deliver measurable results, we scale back." "That might work for Margaret. She's data-driven. But David's more political. He's worried about looking weak in front of Martin." "What does David care about?" "Legacy. He's been on the board for 20 years. He wants to be remembered as someone who built something, not someone who maintained the status quo." Evelyn leaned back in her chair, thinking. What if Noah presents to the board? Tells his story. Explains what it's like to be the person holding the infrastructure together with duct tape and hope. Makes it personal instead of abstract. Patricia's eyes lit up. That could work. David's a sucker for underdog stories. Noah's already agreed to do it. I just need to make sure he's prepared. Can he handle Martin's attacks? I think so. He's tougher than he looks. He'd have to be, to survive what you put him through. The words stung, but Evelyn didn't flinch. I know, I'm trying to make it right. I know you are. That's why I'm helping. Patricia took a sip of her coffee. But understand something, Evelyn. This vote isn't just about the restructuring. It's about whether the board believes you can lead. If you lose Monday, Martin will have the ammunition he needs to remove you. I understand. Do you? Because losing your job is one thing. Losing it in a way that follows you for the rest of your career is something else entirely. Martin won't just fire you. He'll make sure everyone knows why. He'll turn you into a cautionary tale about inexperienced executives who overreach. Evelyn met Patricia's gaze steadily. Then I'd better win. Patricia smiled. That's the spirit. Now, let's talk strategy. They spent the next 3 hours going through every board member's concerns, priorities, and vulnerabilities. Patricia was ruthless in her assessment, pointing out weaknesses Evelyn could exploit and strengths she needed to work around. By the time Evelyn left, she had a plan. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't guaranteed. But it was something. On Sunday afternoon, Evelyn met Noah at a small conference room she'd rented at a hotel downtown. She'd brought presentation materials, talking points, and 3 different versions of the story she thought he should tell. Noah looked at the materials and laughed. You've been busy. I want you to be prepared. Evelyn, I've been presenting to technical audiences for 6 years. I know how to talk. This isn't a technical audience. This is a group of people who care more about quarterly earnings than system architecture. You need to make them care about you, not just the technology. Noah's expression sobered. What do you want me to say? The truth. What it was like working here. What it cost you. Why it matters that things change. You want me to tell them about my wife? About Lily? Only if you're comfortable with it. But yes, because that's what makes this real. That's what transforms numbers on a spreadsheet into human consequences. Noah was quiet for a long time. I don't like using my family as emotional ammunition. I know, I'm not asking you to exploit them. I'm asking you to help the board understand that behind every cost-saving measure and efficiency optimization, there are actual people whose lives get destroyed. And if they don't care, then we lose. But at least we lose having told the truth. Noah picked up one of the presentation drafts and read through it. This is good, but it's not me. It's too polished, too prepared. What would be more you? Just talking, no slides, no script. Just me explaining what it's like to be the person everyone depends on and nobody sees. Can you do that in front of 11 board members who are looking for any reason to vote against us? I did it in front of you when you showed up at my apartment. That was scarier. Evelyn smiled despite herself. All right, we'll do it your way. But let's practice anyway. I'll play Martin Cross. Hit you with the worst questions I can think of. They spent 2 hours running through potential attacks. Evelyn was merciless, channeling every ounce of Martin's hostility into questions designed to make Noah defensive, emotional, or weak. Why should we trust someone who couldn't even stay awake at work? If you're so brilliant, why did it take you 6 years to ask for help? Aren't you just angry because you got fired and now you want revenge? Noah handled each question with a calmness that surprised her. He didn't get defensive. He didn't attack back. He just answered honestly, acknowledging his mistakes and explaining his choices with a clarity that made Evelyn's rehearsed attacks sound petty. By the end of the session, Evelyn was convinced. You're going to be fine. You sound surprised. I am. Most people would crack under that kind of pressure. I've been cracking for 6 years. I'm kind of used to it. Evelyn laughed, but there was sadness underneath it. I'm sorry. For all of it. I know. You've said that about 100 times now. I'll probably say it 100 more. That's okay. I'm starting to believe you mean it. They packed up the materials and walked out to the parking lot together. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that looked almost artificial. Evelyn, Noah said as they reached their cars. Yeah? Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know something. You gave me back something I thought I'd lost. What's that? The belief that people in power can actually give a damn. The leadership doesn't have to mean choosing between being good and being effective. He paused. You're not perfect. You screw up. You ask too much sometimes. But you're trying to build something real. That matters. Evelyn felt her throat tighten. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just don't stop fighting. I won't. Good. Because tomorrow's going to be ugly. I know. And you might lose everything. I know that too. Noah studied her face in the fading light. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the most stubborn. Probably both. Yeah, probably. He got in his car and drove away. Evelyn stood in the parking lot for a long time, watching the sky darken and trying to quiet the fear rising in her chest. Tomorrow would decide everything. Her career. Noah's future. The possibility that a company could actually change. She drove home through empty Sunday streets, thinking about the board members she needed to convince, and the man who'd agreed to stand beside her despite every reason to walk away. When she got to her apartment, she found a text from Lily waiting. My dad says tomorrow is important. I drew you a picture for luck. He'll bring it. Attached was a photo of a crayon drawing. 3 figures standing in front of a building, all holding hands, with the sun shining overhead, and the words, Good luck. Evelyn. Written in careful block letters across the top. Evelyn stared at the picture until her vision blurred. Then she saved it to her phone, turned off the lights, and tried to sleep. Monday morning arrived too quickly. Evelyn dressed carefully, navy suit, simple jewelry, nothing that would distract from what she needed to say. She arrived at headquarters at 7:30, 2 hours before the board meeting, and found Rachel already waiting in her office. Couldn't sleep either? Rachel asked. Not really. I brought you breakfast. You need to eat. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. You'll regret it if you don't. Evelyn forced down half a bagel and some coffee while reviewing her notes one last time. At 8:15, Noah arrived wearing a dark gray suit that looked new and carrying a folder that Evelyn recognized as the one containing his contract. You look nervous, she said. I am nervous. I'm about to walk into a room full of people who make more in a month than I made in a year and tell them they're doing everything wrong. You're not telling them they're wrong. You're telling them how to be better. That's a nice way of saying the same thing. Maybe, but it's true. At 8:45, they walked together to the 44th floor. The conference room was already filling with board members, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Martin Cross stood near the window, talking quietly with 2 other board members. When he saw Evelyn and Noah enter, his expression hardened. The chairman called the meeting to order at exactly 9 o'clock. We're here to vote on Ms. Carter's security infrastructure restructuring proposal, he said. But before we vote, Ms. Carter has requested time for a presentation. The floor is yours, Evelyn. Evelyn stood up. Her hands weren't shaking. Her voice was steady. "Thank you for your time," she began. "I know you've all read the cost-benefit analysis. I know the numbers are significant. But before we talk about budgets and projections, I want you to hear from someone who lived the problem we're trying to solve." She gestured to Noah. "This is Noah Hayes. Some of you may remember him as the employee I fired on my first day as CEO. What you might not know is that Noah spent 6 years keeping this company's infrastructure secure while being systematically undervalued, overworked, and ignored. I've asked him to share his experience, not to embarrass the company, but to help you understand why this restructuring isn't optional." She sat down. Noah stood up. For a moment, he just looked at the board members, his expression unreadable. Then he began to speak. "4 years ago, my wife died of cancer," he said quietly. "We'd spent everything we had trying to save her. When she was gone, I was left with medical debt I couldn't pay and a 7-year-old daughter who'd just lost her mother. I kept working because I didn't have a choice. And I was good at my job, really good. But nobody noticed because I was quiet and I didn't play politics and I just kept my head down and worked." He paused, looking around the room. "Over 6 years, I designed security protocols that saved this company millions and prevented fraud. I built infrastructure that handled 3 times the transaction volume it was designed for. I worked 70, 80-hour weeks because there was nobody else who could do what I did. And the whole time, I was invisible." Martin started to interrupt, but the chairman raised his hand for silence. "3 weeks ago, I spent 48 hours straight preventing a cyberattack that would have bankrupted this company," Noah continued. "I didn't sleep. I barely ate. I just worked because people's jobs and livelihoods depended on me. And when I finally collapsed from exhaustion, the new CEO walked in and fired me without asking a single question." Several board members shifted uncomfortably. Noah's voice remained calm, almost conversational. "I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. I'm telling you because what happened to me happens to people every day in this company. Good people, talented people, people who care about their work and their colleagues. They get used up, burned out, and thrown away because it's cheaper to replace them than to value them." He pulled the folder from under his arm and set it on the table. "Evelyn created a position for me, head of infrastructure security, fair pay, reasonable hours, a team I can actually lead instead of trying to do everything alone, and you're about to vote on whether that position should exist." "Mr. Hayes," Martin said, his voice cold, "with all due respect, you're asking us to spend millions of dollars because you had a difficult experience. That's not how business decisions are made." "You're right," Noah said. "Business decisions are made based on risk and return. So let me give you the risk analysis. Without proper infrastructure security, this company is 1 attack away from total collapse. The cyber attack 3 weeks ago? That was a warning shot. The next one will be worse. And when it comes, you won't have anyone like me around to stop it because you've made it clear that the people who actually keep this place running don't matter." The room went silent. "The return analysis is simple," Noah continued. "Invest in your people, and they'll build something worth protecting. Keep treating them as disposable, and eventually the good ones will leave and you'll be left with whoever was willing to accept being exploited." He looked directly at Martin. "So yes, this is about my difficult experience, but it's also about whether this company wants to survive the next 10 years or just limp along until something breaks that nobody knows how to fix." Noah sat down. The silence in the room was absolute. Finally, the chairman spoke. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes. That was illuminating." He looked around the table. "Does anyone have questions before we vote?" David Reeves, one of the board members Patricia had identified as a soft no, raised his hand. "Mr. Hayes, you said you were invisible. What would have made you feel seen?" Noah thought for a moment. "Someone asking why I was at my desk at 3 in the morning instead of assuming I had nothing better to do. Someone noticing when I solved problems instead of only noticing when problems occurred. Someone treating my time as valuable instead of infinite." He paused. "Basically, someone seeing me as a person instead of a resource." David nodded slowly and made a note on his pad. Margaret Liu spoke next. "Ms. Carter, you're proposing a 6-month pilot program. What metrics would you use to determine success?" Evelyn had expected this question. 3 primary metrics. First, reduction in security incidents. Second, employee retention in the infrastructure team. Third, system uptime and performance improvements. We'd provide monthly reports to the board showing progress against baseline. And if the metrics don't improve, then we scale back and reassess. But I'm confident they will improve because we'll finally have adequate staffing and support. Margaret made her own notes, her expression neutral. Martin leaned forward. I'd like to pose a question to both of you. This entire proposal is built on the assumption that Mr. Hayes is uniquely qualified to lead this restructuring. But what happens if he leaves? Don't we end up right back where we started? It was a good question, and Martin knew it. Noah answered before Evelyn could. That's exactly why this restructuring is necessary. Right now, I'm a single point of failure. If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, the company's infrastructure collapses. What Evelyn's proposing is a team structure where knowledge is distributed, where people can cover for each other, where the system survives even if one person leaves. He met Martin's gaze directly. You're arguing against the proposal by highlighting exactly why we need it. Several board members smiled. Martin's expression darkened. Any other questions? The chairman asked. No one spoke. Then let's vote. All in favor of approving Ms. Carter's infrastructure restructuring proposal? Evelyn held her breath. 6 hands went up. Patricia, the chairman, 3 others she'd expected. Then, slowly, David Reeves raised his hand. 7. Margaret Liu was writing something on her notepad, her hand hovering uncertainly. The room waited. Finally, Margaret looked up at Noah. You really think this will work? I know it will, Noah said quietly. Because I've been waiting 6 years for someone to give me the chance to prove it. Margaret raised her hand. 8 votes. A majority. The chairman nodded. The motion passes. Ms. Carter, you have authorization to proceed with the restructuring as outlined in your proposal. Evelyn felt something release in her chest. Relief, gratitude, triumph, all mixed together. She looked at Noah, who was staring at his folded hands, his expression unreadable. Martin stood up abruptly. I'd like to register my strong dissent. This is a mistake that will cost the company dearly. Your dissent is noted, the chairman said. Meeting adjourned. Board members began filing out. Patricia caught Evelyn's eye and smiled. David Reeves stopped by Noah's chair. I lost my son to overwork 3 years ago, David said quietly. Heart attack at 42. He was a consultant who couldn't say no to clients. He put a hand on Noah's shoulder. Don't let this place do that to you, and don't let it do it to anyone else. He walked away before Noah could respond. When the room had cleared except for Evelyn, Noah, and Rachel, Noah finally looked up. We did it, he said, sounding slightly stunned. You did it, Evelyn corrected. That speech was incredible. I just told the truth. That's what made it incredible. Rachel was grinning. I'm going to start the recruitment process today. We'll have your team assembled within 6 weeks. 6 weeks? Noah looked panicked. That's not much time. It's plenty of time, trust me. Rachel left, already typing on her phone. Evelyn and Noah sat alone in the empty conference room. Thank you, Evelyn said, for standing up there, for telling your story, for taking the risk. Thank you for building something worth risking it for. They sat in silence for a moment. What happens now? Noah asked. Now we get to work. You start building your team. I start proving to the board that we made the right choice. We try to change a company from the inside out. That's simple, huh? That complicated. Noah smiled, a real smile, genuine and unguarded. When do I start? Whenever you're ready. I'm ready now. Then welcome back, Noah Hayes, for real this time. Noah stood up and extended his hand. Evelyn shook it, feeling the calluses from years of hard work, the strength that came from carrying weight nobody else could see. Let's build something, Noah said. Yeah, Evelyn replied. Let's do that. They walked out of the conference room together, into the uncertain future they just fought to create, ready to prove that companies could change, that people mattered more than metrics, and that sometimes the quiet ones carrying the world on their backs deserved to be seen. Noah's first day back started at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, 6 weeks after the board vote that changed everything. Evelyn was already waiting in the operations center when he arrived, standing beside the workstation that had once been his prison and was now the foundation of something new. 4 additional desks had been added in a cluster formation, each equipped with triple monitors and the kind of hardware that Noah had spent years requesting and never receiving. You're early, Noah said. I wanted to be here when you walked in. Make sure it felt different this time. Noah looked around the space. The other desks were still empty. His team wouldn't start for another week. But the change was visible. Nameplate holders waiting to be filled. A small kitchen area with a coffee maker and a refrigerator. A whiteboard mounted on the wall for collaborative planning. It feels different, he said quietly. Good different? I don't know yet. Ask me in 6 months. They stood together in silence for a moment, both remembering the last time Noah had occupied this space. The exhaustion, the desperation, the moment everything had broken. I'm not going to let that happen again, Evelyn said, reading his thoughts. You working yourself to death while everyone else looks away. I know, but knowing it and believing it are different things. Then I'll keep proving it until you believe it. Noah turned to look at her. You really mean that? Every word? Before either of them could say more, Rachel appeared carrying a laptop and a stack of folders. Your team starts Monday, she announced, setting everything down on Noah's desk. I've scheduled individual meetings with each of them this week so you can get to know them before they officially begin. Also, HR wants to do an orientation session Friday, and IT needs your equipment requests by tomorrow. Noah blinked. That's a lot of information at 8 in the morning. Get used to it. You're an executive now. 8 a.m. is when the day starts getting busy. Rachel left before Noah could respond. He looked at Evelyn with an expression somewhere between panic and amusement. What have I gotten myself into? He asked. Leadership. It's terrifying and exhausting and occasionally rewarding. You're really selling it. I'm being honest. That's more valuable than selling. Noah sat down at his desk and opened the first folder. Inside were resumes, interview notes, and reference letters for the 4 people Rachel had recruited. He read through them slowly, his expression growing more serious with each page. These are good, he said finally. Really good. Experienced, qualified, exactly the kind of people we need. Rachel doesn't hire anyone who isn't excellent, but can they work together? Can they handle the pressure? Can they... He stopped himself. Sorry, I'm overthinking. No, you're being thorough. That's different. Evelyn pulled up a chair beside him. What are you actually worried about? Noah was quiet for a moment. I'm worried I won't know how to lead them. I've spent 6 years working alone. I don't know how to delegate. I don't know how to trust other people with work I've always done myself. Then you'll learn, same as I'm learning. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's just necessary. Over the following week, Noah met individually with each member of his incoming team. First was Jennifer Martinez, a security architect with 15 years of experience who'd left her previous job after being passed over for promotion 5 times. She was sharp, direct, and had opinions about everything from firewall configurations to organizational culture. I'm not here to coast, she told Noah during their coffee meeting. I'm here to build something that actually works. If you're looking for someone who just nods and follows orders, I'm not your person. Good, Noah said. I don't want someone who nods and follows orders. I want someone who'll tell me when I'm wrong. Jennifer studied him. You mean that? Completely. Then we'll get along fine. Next was Marcus Chen, a recent graduate with a master's in cybersecurity and the kind of nervous energy that reminded Noah of himself at that age. Marcus had turned down offers from 3 larger companies to join Noah's team specifically because of what Noah had said at the board meeting. I watched the video, Marcus explained. Someone recorded it and posted it internally. What you said about being invisible, about being used up, that's every junior engineer's nightmare. I wanted to work somewhere that might actually be different. I can't promise it'll be perfect, Noah warned. We're building this from scratch. There will be mistakes. I'd rather make mistakes trying to build something good than succeed at maintaining something broken. The third team member was Sarah Okonkwo, a specialist in threat detection who'd spent a decade at a government agency before burning out on bureaucracy. She was quiet, methodical, and had a reputation for catching security vulnerabilities that everyone else missed. I don't need glory, she told Noah. I just need space to work and people who'll listen when I find something. Can you give me that? Yes, and if I don't, you have permission to call me out on it. I'll hold you to that. The final team member was David Park, an infrastructure engineer in his mid-40s who'd been working contract positions for years after leaving a toxic corporate environment. He had 2 kids in college, and a wife who worked as a teacher, and he needed stability more than he needed excitement. "I'm not flashy," David said bluntly. "I'm not going to revolutionize anything, but I'll show up every day, do excellent work, and go home at a reasonable hour to have dinner with my family. If that's not enough, tell me now." "That's exactly enough," Noah said. "That's the whole point." By Friday, Noah had met all 4 team members and felt something he hadn't felt in years, hope that he might not have to carry everything alone. That evening, he stopped by Evelyn's office before heading home. "How'd it go?" she asked, looking up from her laptop. "Better than I expected. They're good, really good, different from each other, which I think is important. Different perspectives, different strengths." "Different from you?" "Very different, which is probably good because if they were all like me, we'd be 4 people working alone in the same room." Evelyn smiled. "You're learning already." "Maybe." Noah hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How do you deal with the pressure, the constant feeling that everything could fall apart if you make the wrong decision?" Evelyn leaned back in her chair. "Honestly, I don't deal with it. I just accept that it's there and keep moving anyway. Some days are better than others." "That's not very reassuring. It's the truth. Leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about making the best decisions you can with incomplete information and then living with the consequences." "What if the consequences are terrible?" "Then you fix what you can and learn from what you can't fix." She paused. "Noah, you're going to make mistakes. So am I. That's guaranteed. The question isn't whether we'll screw up. It's whether we'll own it when we do." Noah nodded slowly. "My wife used to say something similar. She'd tell me that perfectionism is just fear wearing a disguise." She sounds like she was wise. She was. About most things, anyway. Noah's expression softened. "Lily asked me this morning if you were coming to her school play next month." Evelyn blinked. "Her school play?" "She's playing a talking tree in some environmental awareness production. It's exactly as chaotic as it sounds. But she wants you there." "Does she understand I'm your boss, not your friend?" "She's 7. She doesn't really distinguish between the two. You're someone who comes over for dinner sometimes and brought spring rolls that one time. Therefore, you should come to her play." Evelyn felt something warm settle in her chest. "I'd be honored." "Don't be honored yet. It's going to be 2 hours of children singing off-key and forgetting their lines." "Sounds perfect." Noah almost smiled. "I'll send you the details." After he left, Evelyn sat alone in her office, thinking about how strange her life had become. 3 months ago, she'd been a newly appointed CEO focused entirely on proving herself. Now she was being invited to school plays and having dinner with the man she'd fired and building something that felt more real than anything she'd accomplished in 12 years of corporate climbing. Her phone buzzed. A text from Patricia Chen. "Board meeting next week. Martin's going to challenge the infrastructure spending again. Be ready." Evelyn typed back, "I'm always ready." "Good. Because he's not going to stop trying to remove you. Let him try. I've got work to do." She set down her phone and returned to the quarterly report she'd been reviewing, aware that the fight wasn't over, but feeling, for the first time, like she might actually be fighting for something worth protecting. The following Monday, Noah's team officially started. Evelyn made a point of stopping by the infrastructure security area that morning, bringing coffee and pastries as a small gesture of welcome. The 4 new team members were clustered around Noah's desk, listening as he walked them through the system architecture on his monitors. "The core payment processing runs through these servers," Noah was explaining, pointing to a complex diagram. "They handle about 3 million transactions daily. If any of them go down, we've got redundancy, but the failover process is fragile. That's one of the first things we need to reinforce." Jennifer leaned in, studying the diagram. "Who designed this failover system? It's got at least 3 points of failure I can see just from this overview." "I designed it," Noah said, 3 years ago, with no budget and no support. It's held together with duct tape and hope." "Then let's tear it apart and build something better." Marcus raised his hand tentatively. "Sorry, basic question. How do we test changes without risking the live system?" "Good question," Noah said. We've got a sandbox environment, but it's not a perfect mirror of production. Sarah, that's going to be one of your first projects. Building a testing environment that actually reflects what we're protecting." Sarah nodded, already making notes. Evelyn watched the interaction with quiet satisfaction. Noah was different here. Still serious, still intense, but there was an ease to his movements that hadn't existed before. He wasn't carrying everything alone anymore. David noticed her standing nearby and waved. "Miss Carter, thanks for the coffee. Call me Evelyn, and you're welcome." Noah was just telling us about the cyber attack, the one that almost took down the company. "Worst week of my life," Evelyn said. "Well, second worst. The worst was the week before when I made the decisions that caused it." The team exchanged glances. Noah had clearly already told them the story. "He also told us you drove to his apartment and apologized," Jennifer said. "That's not something most executives would do. Most executives care more about being right than doing right. I'm trying to be different." "Are you succeeding?" Marcus asked, then immediately looked like he regretted the question. "Sorry, that was too direct." "No, it's a fair question." Evelyn thought for a moment. "Ask me in 6 months. If this team is still intact, if you're all still showing up excited to work instead of dreading it, if we've built something sustainable instead of just surviving, then yes, I'll have succeeded. Until then, I'm just trying." Sarah spoke up for the first time. "Noah said you restructured the entire security department because it was the right thing to do, even though it almost cost you your job." "That's accurate." "Why?" "Because I couldn't live with myself knowing I'd perpetuated a system that destroyed good people. And because leadership without integrity is just management." The team was quiet, absorbing that. "All right," Noah said, breaking the silence. "We've got a lot of work to do. Jennifer, I want you to start auditing the firewall configurations. Marcus, you're on the testing environment with Sarah. David, let's you and I walk through the backup systems and identify vulnerabilities." The team scattered to their respective workstations. Evelyn started to leave, but Noah called after her. "Hey, Evelyn." She turned back. "Thank you for this. For all of it." "You keep saying that." "I'll probably keep saying it for a while." "That's okay. I don't mind hearing it." Over the following weeks, the team found its rhythm. There were stumbles. Jennifer and Marcus clashed over testing protocols. David accidentally brought down a secondary server during a routine maintenance check. Sarah discovered 3 critical vulnerabilities that required immediate patches, but they worked through each problem together. Noah learned to delegate, slowly and imperfectly. He still worked too many hours, still checked systems obsessively from home, but gradually he began trusting his team to carry pieces of the burden he'd been holding alone for years. Evelyn watched the transformation during their weekly check-ins. Noah was tired, but it was a different kind of tired. Not the desperate exhaustion of someone drowning, but the productive fatigue of someone building something real. "How's the team?" she asked during one of their Friday meetings. "Good. Better than good, actually. Jennifer caught a vulnerability last week that I'd completely missed. Marcus built a monitoring system that's twice as efficient as what we had before. They're not just helping, they're making things better. That's what happens when you hire excellent people and actually let them do their jobs." Revolutionary concept. "You'd think." Evelyn paused. "How are you doing? Personally, I mean." Noah considered the question. "I'm sleeping better. Lily's happier because I'm home for dinner most nights. I paid off a chunk of the medical debt last month, so personally, I'm doing better than I've done in years." "Good. That's what this was supposed to achieve." "What about you? How are you holding up?" Evelyn smiled tiredly. "Martin's still trying to undermine me at every board meeting. The press is still writing articles questioning my leadership. Half the executive team thinks I'm too soft, and the other half thinks I'm too aggressive. So basically, I'm exhausting everyone equally." "Sounds like you're doing something right. Or something very wrong. Hard to tell sometimes." "I think you're doing something right," Noah said quietly. "You're changing things. Real change pisses people off because it forces them to examine their own choices. The fact that Martin's fighting you so hard means you're threatening something he wants to protect. And what's that? A system where people like him have power and people like me stay invisible." Evelyn was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes I wonder if it's worth it. The constant fighting, the endless resistance. Wouldn't it be easier to just go along with how things have always been?" "Easier for who?" "For me." "Maybe, but you'd hate yourself." "How do you know?" "Because you already tried it. You spent 12 years playing the game, climbing the ladder, doing what you thought you were supposed to do. And when you got to the top, you looked around and decided it wasn't worth it." Noah met her eyes. People who are okay with broken systems don't try to fix them. You're trying to fix it. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are. Evelyn felt her throat tighten. That might be the nicest thing anyone said to me in months. It's just the truth. The truth is usually the nicest thing. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Two people who'd started as adversaries and somehow become something closer to allies. Maybe even friends, though neither of them was quite ready to use that word yet. Lily's play is this Friday, Noah said eventually. 6 o'clock. I'll text you the address. I'll be there. You don't have to. I want to. She invited me. That means something. Noah smiled. It means she's decided you're part of her life now. Once Lily decides something, it's pretty much permanent. I'm honored. You should be. She's an excellent judge of character. Friday evening, Evelyn found herself sitting in an elementary school auditorium surrounded by parents, grandparents, and younger siblings, waiting for a production called The Forest Speaks to begin. Noah had saved her a seat in the third row. He looked nervous, clutching a small bouquet of flowers and checking his phone every few minutes. She's going to be great, Evelyn said. She forgot her lines during the dress rehearsal yesterday, twice. Then she'll remember them tonight. Kids have a way of rising to occasions. I hope you're right. The lights dimmed, the curtain opened, and for the next 90 minutes, Evelyn watched a chaotic, heartfelt production about environmental conservation featuring children dressed as various trees, animals, and recycling bins. Lily appeared in the second act wearing a brown costume with construction paper leaves taped to her arms. Her role was to deliver a monologue about the importance of protecting forests. She walked to center stage, looked out at the audience, and froze. Evelyn felt Noah tense beside her. For a long, terrible moment, Lily just stood there, her eyes wide with panic. Then she found Noah in the audience. He smiled and gave her a small thumbs up. Lily took a breath and began to speak. Her voice was small at first, uncertain, but it grew stronger with each sentence. She delivered her entire monologue without missing a word, her childish earnestness transforming the simple script into something genuine. When she finished, the audience applauded. Noah was beaming, his nervousness replaced by pure pride. After the show, they waited outside the auditorium while children in various costumes reunited with their families. When Lily finally emerged, still wearing her tree costume, she ran straight to Noah and jumped into his arms. I did it, she announced. I didn't forget anything. You were perfect, Noah said, hugging her tightly. I'm so proud of you. Did you see me, Evelyn? Lily asked, noticing her for the first time. I saw you. You were wonderful. I was scared at first, but then I saw Daddy and I remembered what he tells me, that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the thing anyway. Evelyn felt something twist in her chest. Your father is very wise. I know. He's the best. Noah set Lily down and handed her the flowers. These are for you, for being such a great tree. Lily buried her face in the bouquet, inhaling deeply. Then she looked up at both of them with serious eyes. Can Evelyn come to dinner? She asked. Noah glanced at Evelyn. She might have other plans. I don't, Evelyn said. Dinner sounds perfect. They went to a small Italian place near Noah's apartment, the kind of family restaurant with red checkered tablecloths and breadsticks that arrived before you ordered. Lily dominated the conversation, recounting every moment of the play in elaborate detail, her earlier nervousness completely forgotten. Watching her, Evelyn understood something she hadn't fully grasped before. This was what she'd almost destroyed. Not just a job or a career, but moments like this. A father celebrating his daughter's small victories, a child feeling safe enough to be brave, a family building a life that wasn't defined by exhaustion and fear. After dinner, Noah walked Evelyn to her car. Thank you for coming, he said. It meant a lot to Lily, and to me. Thank you for inviting me. And I can't remember the last time I went to something that wasn't work-related. That's depressing. I know. I'm working on it. Noah leaned against her car. Can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever regret it, taking the risk, fighting the board, building all of this when it would have been easier to just go along with how things were? Evelyn thought for a long moment. Every time Martin challenges me in a board meeting, I regret it a little. Every time the press writes an article about my leadership failures, I regret it. Every time I lie awake at 3 a.m. wondering if I'm doing the right thing, I regret it. That's a lot of regret. But then I see your team working together. I see you going home at reasonable hours. I see Lily drawing pictures where everyone's holding hands. And I think maybe the regret is worth it if we're building something better. Noah was quiet for a moment. You're different from how I thought you'd be. How did you think I'd be? I thought you'd lose interest once the crisis passed, that you'd go back to being the person who fired me without asking questions. But you didn't. You kept showing up. You kept fighting. You kept trying to be better. I'm still trying. I don't know if I'm succeeding. You are. Trust me. Evelyn smiled. That's the second time you've told me that. I'll probably tell you a few more times before you believe it. I'm starting to believe it. Good. Because it's true. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Two people who'd been through something difficult and come out the other side, changed but intact. I should get home, Noah said finally. Lily needs to get ready for bed, and I promised I'd read her 3 chapters tonight. What are you reading? Some series about a magical school. She's obsessed. Sounds fun. It's better than I expected. Good versus evil, friendship, the importance of standing up for what's right. Pretty solid themes. Sounds like real life. Yeah, kind of does. Noah pushed away from the car. See you Monday? Monday. And Noah? Yeah? Thank you. For giving me another chance, for building this team, for showing me what real leadership looks like. Noah looked surprised. I'm not a leader. I'm just someone trying to do good work. That's exactly what leadership is. You just didn't have a title for it before. He smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. Maybe. Definitely. Evelyn drove home through quiet streets, thinking about the evening, about Lily's bravery on stage, about Noah's quiet strength, about the strange path that had brought them from that terrible first morning to this moment of something close to friendship. The following months were not easy. Martin continued his campaign against Evelyn, challenging every decision, questioning every initiative, looking for any opportunity to prove she was unfit to lead. The press remained skeptical. Some board members remained unconvinced. But Noah's team thrived. They reinforced the security infrastructure piece by piece, building redundancies and fail-safes that transformed the fragile system into something robust. They caught threats before they became crises. They worked reasonable hours and went home to their families. And slowly, other departments began to notice. Engineers started asking why infrastructure security got protected budgets and reasonable workloads while they were still being ground down. HR started getting complaints about inequity. Evelyn started getting requests to expand the restructuring model to other departments. 6 months after the board vote, Evelyn presented a proposal to extend the infrastructure model company-wide. Protected budgets, reasonable workload standards, team structures that prevented single points of failure. Martin fought it viciously. The board voted 8-3 in favor. A year after Noah's return, the company's security rating had improved by 40%. Employee retention in the infrastructure team was 100%. System uptime had increased. Customer satisfaction had risen. The metrics proved what Evelyn had known all along. Investing in people worked. Martin resigned from the board that summer, citing disagreements with the company's direction. No one was sorry to see him go. On the anniversary of Noah's first day back, Evelyn stopped by his workstation in the evening. The team had already left for the day, but Noah was still there, reviewing security logs with the careful attention that had become his trademark. "You're here late," Evelyn said. Noah looked up. "Just finishing something. I'm heading home in 20 minutes. "Good. You've got a daughter waiting." "I do." He closed his laptop. "Did you need something?" "I wanted to give you this." She handed him an envelope. Inside was a letter on company letterhead, formal and official. Noah read it slowly, his expression shifting from confusion to surprise to something close to disbelief. "You're promoting me to VP of Infrastructure and Security?" he said. "You've earned it. Your team has exceeded every metric. You've transformed how this company approaches security, and you've done it while maintaining work-life balance and building something sustainable." "Evelyn, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just keep doing what you're doing." Noah set down the letter. "A year ago, you fired me. Now you're making me a vice president. That's insane. A year ago, I was an arrogant executive who thought she knew everything. Now I'm someone trying to build a company that actually values its people. We've both changed." "Yeah, we have." They were quiet for a moment. "Lily wanted me to give you something," Noah said. He pulled out a folded piece of paper from his desk drawer and handed it to her. Evelyn unfolded it carefully. It was another crayon drawing. 3 figures standing together in front of a building, all holding hands. But this time, the figures were labeled Daddy, Lily, and Evelyn, and above them, in careful block letters, My Family. Evelyn felt tears prick her eyes. "Noah, I can't accept this. It's how she sees you," Noah said quietly. "She doesn't have a mom, but she has you. Someone who shows up, someone who cares, someone who keeps proving they're not going anywhere." "I don't deserve this." "Maybe not, but you've earned it anyway." Evelyn looked at the drawing, at the simple representation of connection and belonging, at the proof that sometimes the mistakes we make can lead us to places we never expected to find. "Thank you," she said finally, "for letting me into your lives, for giving me a chance to be better, for showing me what actually matters. Thank you for not giving up on me, on this company, on the idea that things could actually change. We changed them together." "Yeah, we did." Evelyn carefully folded the drawing and put it in her bag, knowing it would end up framed on her office wall, a reminder of what she was really fighting for. "Go home," she said. "Lily's waiting." "What about you?" "I'll leave in a few minutes. I just need to finish one thing." After Noah left, Evelyn sat alone in the quiet operations center, surrounded by the technology and infrastructure that Noah and his team had transformed. The monitors displayed smooth, stable system performance. No red alerts, no cascading failures. Just the steady heartbeat of a company that had learned to value the people keeping it alive. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the terrible mistake on her first day, the desperate scramble to fix what she'd broken, the board battles and the press scrutiny and the endless resistance to change. And she thought about what she'd gained, a company that was better, a team that was thriving, a little girl who drew pictures of her as family. The cost had been high. Her career would always carry the mark of those early mistakes. Some people would never forgive her for the risks she'd taken. Some would always see her as the CEO who almost destroyed everything. But sitting there in the quiet evening, looking at the stable systems and thinking about Noah going home to read bedtime stories to his daughter, Evelyn knew something with absolute certainty. It had been worth it. Every sleepless night, every brutal board meeting, every moment of doubt. Worth it to prove that companies could change, that people mattered more than quarterly earnings, that leadership wasn't about power, but about creating space for others to thrive. She pulled out her phone and sent a text to Patricia. "Thank you for believing in me when I didn't deserve it." The response came quickly. "You always deserved it. You just had to learn to see it yourself." Evelyn smiled and stood up, gathering her things and preparing to leave. On her way out, she passed the workstation where she'd found Noah asleep that terrible first morning, where she'd made the worst decision of her career, where everything had started to break, and where, somehow, everything had also started to heal. She touched the desk briefly, a small acknowledgement of how far they'd both come. Then she walked out into the evening, leaving behind the office and the title and the weight of expectation, heading home to an apartment that didn't feel quite so empty anymore. Because she'd learned something that year that no business school had ever taught her. Real leadership wasn't about being the smartest person in the room. It wasn't about having all the answers or never making mistakes. Real leadership was about being brave enough to admit when you were wrong, strong enough to change, humble enough to listen, and committed enough to keep showing up day after day, building something better than what existed before. It was about seeing people as people, not resources, about valuing dignity over efficiency, about understanding that the quiet ones carrying the world on their backs deserved to be seen. Evelyn had started her journey as a CEO, trying to prove she belonged at the top. She'd ended it as a leader trying to lift others up alongside her. And somehow, in the space between those two versions of herself, she'd discovered something she'd been searching for her entire career without knowing it. Purpose. Not the hollow purpose of titles and corner offices and quarterly bonuses, but the real purpose that came from knowing that the work she did mattered, that the changes she fought for helped real people live better lives, that a little girl somewhere was drawing pictures of her family and including Evelyn in the frame. That was worth more than any promotion, more than any accolade, more than anything she'd achieved in 12 years of climbing corporate ladders. It was worth everything. And as Evelyn drove through the city toward home, past the buildings and the lights, and the endless movement of people living their lives, she made herself a promise. She would keep fighting, keep building, keep showing up for the people who needed someone to see them. Not because it was easy, not because it was safe, not because it would advance her career or protect her reputation, but because it was right. And in the end, that was the only thing that mattered. That was the lesson Noah Hayes had taught her, though he'd probably never realize it. That strength wasn't about never falling down. It was about getting back up, about carrying others when they couldn't carry themselves, about building something worth believing in, even when the whole world said it was impossible. Evelyn had been the CEO who fired a man without asking questions. Now she was the leader who would spend the rest of her career making sure no one else ever felt as invisible as Noah had felt. It wasn't redemption. Redemption was too simple a word for the complex work of becoming better, but it was a start. And sometimes a start was enough.